Good evening and welcome to the Cover One Buffalo Playoff Extravaganza. You are joining your host, Greg Tompsett, along with my partner in crime, Aaron Quinn. Aaron, it's one day away from your birthday. How you doing?
One day away from my birthday, and it's Merry Playoff Eve. And I'm a big Christmas guy. We know that. I get super excited for Christmas. Same level of excitement, but Christmas doesn't have that possible letdown, terrible feeling that we're going to probably talk about with every guest potentially here. So I might not sleep tonight. That's the real reason why I set this show up, Greg. I suckered you into coming on with me on a Friday night and leaving our wives so that we could sit here and get some of my anxiety out because I might not sleep.
I can't lie. I did have to explain why I had a show tonight. Going through it, really just processing, just getting ready. And I don't know what the heck else I would have done tonight. Yeah. So tonight you guys are going to be, just awed by a all-star list of guests throughout the night coming on to talk with us, to be able to set this show up and to be able to go through everything that we're doing. And first, you're going to know the moment you hear him jump aboard. Our first guest is none other than...
What's up, Bills Mafia?
There he is.
Marino from Locked On Bills. Pleased to join you guys tonight. What's up?
What's going on, man? But before we dive in,
you got an interesting name there.
Yeah, what's up with your name?
You should check out the link. You should go to that website. If anyone missed it, I announced this week that I am writing a book. It's nearly complete. It's called Go Bills. Greg named it. We can get to that in a minute, but in short, it's the history of the Buffalo Bills. I go season by season. I tell the story of that season. I give you the starting lineups, the statistical leaders, the Pro Bowlers, and it's year by year, so you can relive the entire history of this team. And folks, it has been fascinating, right? I was born in 1986. I was, a young kid through the Super Bowl years. My Bills are the 96 till now Bills, right? And so learning more about this team in the 60s and 70s and 80s has been awesome, becoming a student of this football team. And thrilled to have the opportunity to write this book. And it's available for pre-order right now, BuffaloBillsBook.com. A lot of incentives for ordering early. It's a discounted price, an exclusive trading card. I'll sign your copy. So BuffaloBillsBook.com. Thanks for allowing me to talk about that. And shout out to Greg. Greg had no idea. I'm in a group.
That's when he does his best work, when he doesn't know.
I just put in a group text that I'm in with him, and I'm like, hey, guys, I'm kind of working on something here. What phrases resonate with Bills fans? And Greg's like, go Bills. It's the aloha of Buffalo. Go Bills. Sure. People say that instead of goodbye. They say that
wherever
instead of hello.
Go, man.
Go Bills.
Wherever
so I'm like, man, you're not wrong about that. Go Bills is the title of this book. So, man, it's been awesome working on it. Can't wait for it to come out, and would appreciate anyone's consideration for purchasing. Great for the coffee table. Great for the bookshelf. You can get ahead of your Christmas gifts. You guys know Bills fans in your life. BuffaloBillsBook.com. Go ahead and get you a copy or two.
Might have to get myself it.
Yeah. I've already pre-ordered a couple.
There you go.
Oh, wow. Thank you.
One for me, I hope.
Clearly. No. If my nephews are listening, pretend to be surprised.
Yeah, right. GC, thank you for the birthday love. Tomorrow's my birthday, and so I'll take all the birthday love we can get here tonight because I'm getting old, and so the birthday love matters now. I'm almost going to be as old as Greg here soon. I'm 38 tomorrow.
Are you okay with sharing your birthday with the playoff game? I mean, not that you have a choice, but how do you feel about that?
No, I'm not good with it, actually, because so I'm from New England originally, and all my friends are Patriots fans and stuff. And so they are all giving me a hard time about this potential weird juju of. So also I'm a Bulls fan, and the Bulls are playing the Celtics.
What's that about? Well. I saw that. What's that about? Why are you a Bulls fan?
90s, man. Michael Jordan. It's just stuck. And like the Bills, it stuck with me even through terrible years where I could have switched out from that. And so, again, hate the Celtics as much as I hate the Patriots. And they're both playing at 8:30 tomorrow on my birthday. So the stars are either aligning for me to have the greatest sports night of my life, or I'm about to have the worst week of my life of every one of my friends just dunking on me for an entire week on my birthday week. Yeah. Come on.
And we talked about it pre-show, and we'll get into this here. We got some X's and O's that we're going to dive into and want to get, Joe's opinion on. But beforehand, a little higher level, I don't know that the Patriots are necessarily the worst matchup in the world. There were other teams that I was maybe a little more anxious about. In this opening round, I wouldn't have minded the Raiders or the Steelers or someone else. But the issue isn't on the field. It's the enormous variation of how awesome it's going to be if they win and how horrible it's going to be if they lose. Joe, how are you processing that gap in what it's going to mean one way or the other?
Yeah, I'm not processing it, Greg. I understand fully the extremes here, and the Bills are fully capable of winning this football game. In fact, I think the Patriots need things to go a certain way for them to win. And so if the Bills go out there and play the game that they're capable of and don't turn the ball over, don't beat themselves, they're going to advance to the next round. But you still got to play the game. It's single elimination. It's Bill Belichick. It's the 8th time he's faced Josh Allen. 3 of the last 4 times, it hasn't really gone well for him, So it's one of those deals where you feel like you're the better football team and you have more ways to win this football game. But on the other sideline is that guy that's really game planned a ton for you, right? If there's anybody that's going to mix it up and create new challenges for the Bills, it's Bill Belichick. And so you feel like that's somewhat of a neutralizer in this football game. I expect the Bills to win it, but I'm fully aware that there's a chance that they don't, and it would suck. It would completely suck. There's no other way to put it, that if you go out and you win the division for the 2nd year in a row, but you get bounced in the opening round of the playoffs at home by New England. Yeah. I mean,
and the worst part about that is, like, you listen to some of the New England guys that I respect this week. Evan Lazar, I was listening to his show the other night, even Mark Schofield, like, they don't expect to win. Like, they're already happy with where their season's at. They have nothing to lose. And so even if they lose this game, we'll be able to talk some crap to them, but they're not going to care, right? Yeah. But if they win this game,
there's no downside.
We expected to win. We expected to advance. And so that just feels worse. Like, we can talk all the crap we want to them, but they're still going to feel like they had success. If we drop this game, it's going to feel like the biggest letdown ever, because then you're going to have to listen to these Patriots jerks for the next 6 months while you ramp up to the season. And they're going to try to take away your division title and say, just like David Portnoy was trying to say, like, oh, the division title's really happening on Saturday, stuff like that. You're going to have to listen to that crap all week.
I hate to ever agree with him. He's right. Like, he's right. Like,
nobody took away their jet when they lost to the Jets.
No. I just mean the division championship will be meaningless. It will be meaningless if you lose. It doesn't have any actual value.
I agree with you, but the silver lining to me is that the Bills were the outright division champions. It's not like they had to share
a tiebreaker.
There wasn't a tiebreaker here. The Bills had an exclusively better record because you know what? They got swept by the Miami Dolphins, and the Bills beat them twice. Like, okay, they were the real champions of the AFC East.
Oh, and 11-1 in the division the last 2 years. Yeah. They genuinely are there in all those things.
Right.
Back-to-back division titles, 11-1, all the other things that are there, all of it will be this part of the scale up here with the monstrous weight down here of losing tomorrow night. They have to be able to bring this home. And real quick, before we dive in, our man Ron wants to share congratulations to you about the Bills book and saying go Bills. Make sure you're an awesome member of our Cover One Slack channel all the time. And I Am Legend on Twitter, great guy to follow.
Joe, I want to hit you. Yeah, I want to hit you out, man, because you and I have talked a lot football over the years. And I think I believe the game starts in the trenches. I'm a big believer in that it's an old cliche, that it's one up front. Let's kind of break into this. I want to talk about Bills defensive line versus the Patriots offensive line. We heard Isaiah Wynn is officially out for tomorrow. So we talked to Evan Lazar. He's not sure what's going to happen. Is Onwenu going to come in and they're going to slide Trent to left tackle and put Onwenu in at right tackle? Or are they going to go with Justin Herron at left tackle and keep Trent Brown over at right tackle? What do you think that matchup's going to look like? And then kind of give us a overarching of that matchup. Who do you think wins that point of attack between the Bills defensive line and the Pats offensive line in this one?
Yeah, the Patriots are going to be without their left tackle. That's significant. And they do have options. They can put Trent Brown at left tackle, Michael Onwenu to right tackle, or they can leave Trent Brown at right tackle and put Justin Herron at left tackle. And the reason they might do that is, well, first of all, that's what they've done whenever Isaiah Wynn's been out of the lineup. But secondly, Onwenu is an important utility blocker for them. They do a lot of jumbo packages where he's like a sixth offensive lineman. And so I think they want to be able to preserve that, where, Justin Herron's not really the type of threat to make an impact in that type of way. And so they may preserve that component, especially in a game where, I've said it all week, the Patriots are going to run the football, and then they're going to run it some more. And then after that, guys, they're going to run it some more. And so they want to preserve their looks, get that fullback, that big dude. He's a monster. that's what they're going to do. And we can't. Look, it's a significant loss. Isaiah Wynn, they're starting left tackle. He's a good player when he's in the lineup, and so I think that it at a minimum it weakens their offensive line, right? I mean, that's exactly what it is. No matter how you spin it, that's the guy they want playing left tackle. And so what's exciting for me from the Bills' perspective against this offensive line and where they're at is I think we can all collectively agree that the defensive line is playing their best ball right now. And I think that really stems from Harrison Phillips being able to take over that one tech role and really play the bulk of the snaps there. And him and Ed Oliver are playing off.
We haven't seen.
Right. Yeah, we haven't seen it. Ed and Oliver, those two guys are playing off each other extremely well. And that has really made a big difference. And I think, as crazy as it sounds, like Eli Anquo coming in and playing meaningful reps and not having to rely on the Vernon Butlers of the world, who's a pretty disappointing player, with your group of defensive ends where, I mean, my God, they better be able to perform, right, with as much as they've invested in that group. So I think the Bills are playing their best ball on this defensive line right now. I think they know exactly how they're going to be attacked. Like, it's gap power run scheme. They're going to get after you, fight for your gap, play with leverage, keep your hands engaged, and make tackles. I mean, it's an execution thing. There's nothing that's going to be overly creative that you've never seen before in your life playing against this Patriots offense. They're okay with that. They're just they think they can out-execute you, not make mistakes, and let you beat yourself. Well, don't fall into it. Play your gap, play with leverage, play in your run fit, get downhill, make tackles.
Yeah, one thing that...
Real quick, before we go to the next one, I want to say thank you. Charles X here, $20. Really appreciate you very, very much. And Steve, we'll get to your question here in a bit, but I haven't want to let you know we'll get to that here with the ball security and the weather impact.
Absolutely.
When we flip to the other side.
Yeah, real quick, before I pass you back over to Greg here, I was watching that Miami game last week, and I think that this Pats offensive line is very strong unit overall when they're healthy and all together. It's a unit that I think presents some physicality issues for the Bills, at least until Harrison and Ed Oliver got going here recently. But Christian Wilkins was wrecking those guys on the interior offensive line. Yeah. And he's a really good player. And Greg and I have talked about it a few times where it's kind of annoying how good he's becoming, knowing that we have to face him going forward. But I think Ed Oliver and Harrison Phillips are becoming those type of guys and type of game-wrecking interior defensive linemen. Watching that tape back, were you seeing the same thing I was, where you were kind of licking your chops to see them get after this interior offensive line a little bit?
Yeah, and I think what's really surprised me about New England, and I'm not going to question Bill Belichick and his choices, but man, you're rolling with Ted Karras there at left guard over on Onwenu, which just seems crazy to me. And the logic behind it is, well, they wanted to keep that chemistry. They have the rookie quarterback, right? They want to make sure things are really consistent up front. And I think they're losing talent, right? They're losing ability with Onwenu in there. And so, David Andrews is a good player, but he's not necessarily the most physical blocker either. And so puts a lot more on Shaq Mason, puts a lot on Trent Brown. This team was different when Trent Brown came back into the lineup there at right tackle. So they've had to work with combinations as well, like the Bills have this year. And I'm not sure they're playing their best five. And without Isaiah Wynn tomorrow night, they're not going to have their best five.
So flipping to the other side, very similar to Aaron's comments where, hey, we're seeing that Oliver and Harrison Phillips peak at the right time. We're also seeing this offensive line for the Bills come together at the right time. I don't know what kind of magic potion Rick Bates actually is. How much of that is, we've talked about the muddled pass rush that we saw from the Patriots. There was a lot of spy, a lot of contain. There wasn't the pin your ears back approach. And then you should look good against the Falcons and the Jets when you're pass protecting and when you're run blocking. With that in mind, we know Christian Barmore seems to be a go. We don't know what degree or what level or what number of snaps he's going to give, but he's still a go. And then you have the depth of the rest of that line with Godchow, with Lawrence Guy, with Wise, with Judon, all the different waves that can come at you. Do you expect a similar approach? Matthew Judon spoke about how they're going to do that, or do you think that was a little bit of an okey doke? And now we're going to see them pin their ears back and try to get Josh.
It's going to be different. Belichick just watched Josh Allen eat up his defense, right? You can't go back and do the same thing. Josh Allen's shown you what he's going to do. I think what they're going to try to do is force the action a little bit more, right? Last time they played a patient football game, they said eventually Josh Allen is not going to be patient. He's going to force some throws. He's going to give us one. Josh said, bet. All right. He didn't do it. And so this time around, I think the Patriots are going to be more attack style. But I think that they do have a healthy amount of respect for Josh Allen's ability to break, contain, and still win outside of structure. And so it's going to be a little bit more aggressive, but I still think that they're going to be reluctant to really fire in at him, right? So Josh is going to have to come up with his answers a little quicker. I think that's going to be one of the big things. When you go back to that New England game, Week 16, it was one of the highest average time to throw games that Josh Allen had this season. I think it was like second highest behind the Atlanta game of all games. And so I think he really benefited from being patient and allowing routes to develop and making good decisions, where I think Belichick's going to say, yep, we're not doing that again. Let's force him to speed up his process a little bit more. And so that's somewhat exciting, because I do think Josh is fully capable of finding those answers and getting the ball into his playmaker's hands. He knows that's important. So it may look a little bit different, but conceptually, just get the ball out, Josh. Get the ball out, find your answers. And there is a level of not chasing big plays that can still exist within what I think will be a more willingness to play some man, to do some zone blitzing, to maybe send guys from the second level, peel guys back, just try to like force the issue, but also protect yourself and put guys into coverage in spots that maybe Josh Allen's not anticipating them being. They're not going to sit there and play vanilla this time around.
I agree. Yeah, I expect there to be some wild cards in play. And now I want to pivot back here to Steve's question. Only concern is ball security with Josh and Motor. Tough to hold on to a ball you can't feel. We have the better quarterback. I believe Aaron and I are legally obligated to ask each guest about the weather. So going through...
Is it going to be cold? I haven't heard.
It's cold right now. I'm in a garage
I
that's somewhat insulated. It's already cold.
So, but we don't want to... People have gone bonkers with all this weather stuff. I want to ask a couple specifics here. Do you think there are things like specifically ball security with this, how the offensive line is going to handle things, whether that's, Patriots running backs holding onto the ball, the exchange between a Patriots quarterback who has openly talked about not liking the cold and has, almost, half-inch smaller hands than Josh Allen versus
the Jacksonville kid, the Florida kid that played his college ball in Alabama.
I won't be surprised if he comes out. He's going to come out in a full deep sea scuba suit, like Scuba Steve.
He'll be fine. He'll be fine. Neutralizes Josh Allen, but he'll be fine.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Only the negative impact on Josh Allen. We saw the stats. It backs it up.
This is how I put it. Okay. Yeah. Josh Allen's not as good with the weather like every other quarterback. I think this is the practical application. You guys can tell me I'm crazy. All right, cool. Josh Allen becomes Ryan Tannehill as a thrower, but is still Josh Allen as a runner. And Mac Jones becomes John Beck. And somehow that's a good thing for New England?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. I mean, is that...
And it's still Mac Jones
am I crazy?
Runner.
Yeah, and it's still Mac Jones as a runner. It's, It's
What's going on here? I feel like Timon, you know what I mean? From the Lion King.
Everyone that's brought up these stats.
Nala attacks.
Everyone that's brought up these stats.
You know what I'm talking about?
I'm a fan of Matt Fairburn. When he brought up those stats, my first response was, okay, now do Mac Jones.
Yeah.
Like, come on, guys. Like, cherry picking. And the thing is, what we've seen here recently from the Bills, which is a good thing and that we should all be praising when we're talking about this, is that the Bills have been able to find ways to win when Josh is not playing well in the cold. And they're still coming out with wins because they've been able to establish the run. They've been able to establish some physicality. Their defense is tackling and making these plays. That's the recipe to win in the cold. Thank you, Nathan, here. Cover one and Lockdown Bills, preparing Bills Mafia for victory. That's the hope. That's the hope, man.
And another awesome Cover One Slack member, our man Eric Smeal. Thanks to DraftKings Sportsbook, I can spread a little love.
Let's go.
By all means, we're ready for that.
Because of DraftKings Sportsbook, I need a little love.
Yeah. So we appreciate it. It's going to help make up for the excitement. So, before we get to the score, what do you expect tomorrow night in this game? What are you anticipating? I'm a big fan of the Ringer Gambling Show. It has Warren Sharp and your friend Ben Solak and a guy we know well, and that they've cautioned people that, hey, wind is the thing that really brings down the over-under. We don't see all that much of that. We're anticipating Warren Sharp was advocating, guys, be ready. Wait till the very last minute. Let everybody assume the weather brings it down. That over-under is going to keep getting bet lower and lower and lower, and then bet the over. This is going to be a normal football game, and they're going to be able to function and do those things. I like that mindset that, hey, I think this is going to be a bit more normal. That doesn't mean the result's going to be the same as the second game, but it's not going to be the first game where that was literally as extreme of weather as you can actually functionally play a football game in. That's not what this is going to be. It's going to be ridiculously cold. We're going to hear about it ad nauseum during the broadcast, beforehand, live shots on the sideline. What do you actually expect the football game to be like?
My expectations are the Patriots are going to run the football. They're going to use that to set up play action, but it's not play action like other teams do, where they'll set up throws down the field. It's play action to dump offs, right? They like to dump it to the flats. They're going to challenge the Bills to make tackles, right? That's going to be the big script for New England. We're not going to beat ourselves. We're going to put our 215, 220-pound, or in Ramondre Stevenson's case, 240-pound running backs at you all game long and see if you'll tackle for 60 minutes. You can expect some Jonnu Smith in the flats, and then the spot throws. Mac Jones, 3-step drop, get the ball out, spot throw down the field, right? That's what they're going to do. From the Bills' perspective, I think that you are going to see offensively them want to make this a Josh Allen-centric game, right? That's the best thing they could do, and we saw them do it when they entered the playoffs for 3 years now, going back to the Houston game. Every game last year, it was, okay, we know Josh Allen's our best player. We want him to be, and okay, cool, I'll take that. And so you're going to see that. And so the full breadth of what Josh Allen is as a football player, as a runner and thrower, you're going to see the Bills unleash that. Defensively, I think we've talked a lot about the Patriots and what I expect from them. They're going to be a little bit more aggressive, try to dictate the action a little bit more. And then from the Bills' perspective, I do think that they're going to be a little bit more assertive in their looks to take away the run and say, okay, if Mac Jones wants to hit some throws down the field against us, all right, we can live with that, but we're not going to live in this world where they're ahead of the sticks and they're just going to run the ball down our throats. So I think you're going to see a little AJ Klein, you're going to see a little Saron Neal, those types of things to be a little bit more committed to stopping the run and inviting the pass. And if the Bills don't beat themselves, I don't know what to say. If they don't have drop passes and turnovers and weird things happening on special teams, they're going to be okay.
Yeah. Before we get your score prediction, I know we didn't hit you up with this ahead of time, and we will talk a little bit more about skill positions later, but you were talking about some of the things they're going to do different. The Patriots are going to do differently on the defensive side of the ball this time. Jalen Mills, we'll find out tomorrow, but it looks like he's out. Even if he is able to come back,
right?
Yeah, we know that Belichick is similar to McDermott. He wants you to practice, be part of that game plan. Yeah. I'm expecting he's not going to play. How much does that limit what they're going to be able to do in terms of different looks, bringing blitzes? Because now you're relying on some depth at defensive back against a fully healthy Bills wide receiver, because they could throw any of the guys they've got out there. What's that do to sort of handcuff that ability?
I think, am looking forward to Justin Herron and Joanne Williams' big moment in the spotlight.
I think what you'll see is Belichick's going to use J.C. Jackson to play man coverage against Stephon Diggs, and they're going to zone up the rest of the field. I don't know. I mean, honestly, I think that might be their best plan, right? Yeah. This is your best corner. I don't know. Was he all-pro today? I'm sure he was a Pro Bowl.
He's awesome.
A good player, right?
Yeah. So, he definitely had votes on it. I don't know if he made first team, but he got votes.
Let him play against Diggs and then try to space up the field the best you can with other players. And it's what they have to do, right? You don't have your preferred players on the back end. And so they have to make do with that. And I think part of that can be assisted by being aggressive with your fronts, right? Unleashing their players to attack downhill. Now, I would argue they don't necessarily have those players, right? They don't really have attack style players in their front seven. But I think you have to try. You have to get some guys going downhill, shoot some gaps, bring some overload pressures, and see if you can dictate that option and force Josh Allen to throw into leverage defenders and space the field and trust that J.C. Jackson can handle Stephon Diggs one-on-one. I don't know that there's a better plan. I think that's what they kind of have to do.
Try to contain it, sure.
Yeah.
Well, you're muted. Oh, strike number one against Greg.
Dang it.
I know it's not on the agenda for any other guests. So Charles here asking or talking about, we had mentioned it in the post-game show that we did not anticipate Matt Hawk losing his job, but said, I guarantee you it's a conversation taking place in the building. Once you heard McDermott's comments later on, it was 0% chance that was not happening. Talked about all the other positives he brings and how he was not good enough. He had a bad game, but he bounced back later on. So no, Jamie Gillen did not get brought up. The Scottish Hammer is not prepared for this game. So we do have Matt Hawk again tomorrow, and one
and
more
their
thing.
punter might be just as bad.
He's at 3 blocks.
Yeah.
So if fans freak out about how slow they think Matt Hawk is, wait till you see the Pats punter.
Thank you very much, Dave.
Yeah,
Appreciate
Dave.
that.
Happy birthday to Aaron. His birthday was a Jacksonville game. So right after that loss, left the Bills backers bar early before the cake. My wife ordered came. Yeah. Fell asleep at 6 o'clock on her last night in Vegas.
I hope that I have a better birthday.
I hope you have a much better birthday than Dave did.
Yeah, me too. Appreciate that, man.
All right, Joe.
Give us the score prediction, my man.
Do you guys know what the over-under is set at? I don't actually know.
It started at 44. Yeah. I have it's been moving down. It might be a 43 and a half. Look for the latest here.
I'll go 27-13 Bills.
Okay. Yeah. I like that, man.
I believe it's 43 and a half where I'm looking, but 44, 43 and a half is where most of it is. So that makes sense. I like it.
I like it.
That would make good goals for New England.
I can't wait to do the post-game show at like midnight doing that. A game like that.
We got a long night tomorrow, don't we, boys?
It's going to be a long one, man. But hey, if anyone doesn't know, I'm sure they all know exactly where to find you and how to listen to you. But let them know, and then hit your book one more time here.
Yeah, at the Joe Marino on Twitter. Locked On Bills is the podcast, daily podcast on the Bills. The book is coming out later this year. Go Bills is the name. You can pre-order it now at BuffaloBillsBook.com.
We appreciate you, man.
Appreciate you. Keep killing it.
Guys.
Locked On Bills is the best. We appreciate you very much.
All right, enjoy the day tomorrow, bud.
Cheers.
Mark,
Go Bills.
Go Bills.
Go Bills. That's right. Mark, appreciate you very much, man. You guys have been awesome here tonight. The chat's just crushing.
I'm just throwing these guys in. I'm just throwing them in. Woo! What's up, dudes?
Nope.
More guys.
The Bills play tomorrow. Did you guys know that?
We were aware.
Anthony, we will kick you out of here if you are up to your antics.
All right, that's already one. He's out and he's removed. So obviously our next guests are David Tilton and Anthony Prohaska. You can find them as co-hosts of the Air Raid and the host of the Disguised Coverage podcast, along with frequent co-host and contributor to the Film Room and on the post-game show with us, Anthony Prohaska. He is the workhorse of Cover One. How is the horse doing tonight?
I'm doing good. I'm tired, man. We had the post-game Sunday. I did the Rock Pile Tuesday and Pat Moran show Tuesday. I did Disguise Coverage Wednesday. I did the Film Room yesterday with Eric. Now we got to go in tonight. I'm really, really exhausted, but I'm also super pumped. Like, it's the eve of the playoffs. Bills, Pats. We got this playoff extravaganza. So you and Aaron have just put together this all-star studded lineup for tonight's show. You got Joe kicking it off, and you got the two most handsome guys, arguably on the team, with me and Tilt right now coming through. And we got
I thought you were kissing up to Greg
joining
for a second.
Joining the two most handsome.
No, I like the flip. Yeah, that's right. We got a four horseman like stable of handsomeness going on is what we got. Yeah, but I'm excited.
A Mount Rushmore of handsomeness, maybe, if you will.
Nice. A Mount Rushmore of handsomeness.
Ron back here saying Ant going for the cycle.
Yeah, hitting the cycle.
Wow, you're gonna hit it tomorrow night, but that post game show is not gonna start until like midnight.
7 in
You're
a week.
Literally going to be going 6 straight days. Yeah. So, David, before we dive in, what's it been like being a part of Cover One? How you doing on the team?
Dude, it's awesome, man. Happy to join you guys. Been now like almost, man, time's flying by. It's got to be like over 2 months now.
I was going to say a great mid-season free agent acquisition.
It was a great trade deadline pickup. It was fantastic.
I was looking at our playlist. I was like, damn, we've already done 15 shows with Cover One, which is pretty awesome as on the Air Raid Hour between the pregame and the Air Raid Hour Monday shows. This was actually super helpful because it forced me to prepare early. Steve and I will be doing our pregame tomorrow. And in case I get a little saucy during the day, I'll have already done my pre-work ahead of time. So definitely a plus for me to come on tonight.
We're happy to help, man.
So let's dive right into it. I know that we're going to try to work our way through the game plan and what's there. You guys are going to walk us through, the running game here tonight. So I'll start with you, Dave, just going through how we've talked all season long. We want, effectiveness versus volume. We want efficiency versus frequency. We want big plays versus balance and number of snaps. What do you expect in this run game tomorrow night in both how we might lean a little bit more due to the elements and the split between Singletary and Josh? What are your expectations of how the Bills lean on that versus going with their fastball of the pass game?
I think the Bills are going to look at the Pats rush D and say, like, look, they've been a little suspect over the last 4 or 5 weeks of the season. Into the Bills' credit, they've kind of stabilized that running game with Devin Singletary now as kind of the real de facto RB1, if you will. Singletary over his last 4 games, 86, 39, 110, and 88. So about 81 yards per game on the ground for him over the last 4 games. So the Bills have to be feeling a lot better than they did that first time around against the Pats as far as getting the running game going. And it's no coincidence in my mind, and Anthony's probably going to talk about this when we start talking about the offensive line playing a role. They've got some consistency now with that offensive line, the same configuration, Rick Bates insertion in the lineup, allowing Spencer Brown to not have to shift around. Dawkins' play has been elevated the last few weeks. He's kind of back and in full health. So those two things kind of go hand in hand. Josh running the ball is really going to be kind of like the third dimension of this offense if you kind of consider traditional pass offense and traditional run offense. I want to ask you guys, I want to put you on the spot and just ask you a question. How many double-digit attempts rushing games do you think Josh Allen has in his career, just off the top of your head?
14.
2 for Aaron. Anthony,
9.
What about you? How many do you think?
Aaron said 9. Anthony,
I said 2.
Okay.
He's a jerk.
Are we counting scrambles, right?
This is just rushing attempts. Yep.
Everything. Okay, I'll say 4.
Double-digit rushing attempts in a game.
I'll say 4.
He's had 12. Okay. And
right in between Aaron and I.
Yeah. And he's had,
happens a lot.
He's had his most are this year. It's no coincidence. He's got a career high in rushing yards this year. He has 342 more rushing yards this year than he did last year.
When I saw the side by side,
21 yards more a game on the ground. And 3 of his last 5 games, he's had over 10 rushing attempts. So that combined with Singletary getting it going, combined with the offensive line, the Bills, I'm not going to say they're like a potent rushing team by any stretch of the imagination, but for a stretch of games, they can put a nice looking rushing game plan together. And this could be a good week to do it when you start sitting and looking at what the Pats have kind of surrendered on the ground over the last several weeks. So I kind of like where the Bills are sitting right here.
So Anthony, we touched on the O-line a little bit with Joe going over it, but specifically with what you've seen, for anybody who didn't check it out and you're looking for more prep to get ready for tomorrow, the film room you and Eric did was
fantastic
ridiculous.
Today.
I
really
don't know how you were able to go through there, literally acting like the pro scouts for the team. How would you evaluate things? Let's focus on the piece for the run game. We know Aaron's been pretty good about telling people pump the brakes. We're not sure that Rick Bates was actually like a
pump the brakes.
Maybe he's not a sneaky all pro that we found, but he's been good. Like he's been legitimately solid. Anthony, what do you expect now? Another shot at this, really deep Patriots defensive line. How are they going to be able to use that offensive line that we know is best when you can get the athletes out in space? How are they going to handle that here tomorrow night?
I think they're going to continue to go with it. It's something that they've hung their hat on this back part of the season. And I got some fun stats because I like stats because they can be fun. So weeks 1 through 13 for the Buffalo Bills offense, 27% gap runs, 67% zone runs. Again, weeks 1 through 13, 27% gap. Weeks 14 through 18, 48% gap runs, the 5th most in the entire NFL, 48% zone runs. So a 21 percentage point increase in gap runs. Again, the 5th most in the league. It's no secret at this point. The pin and pulls, you're starting to see counter. You're starting to see old school, old fashioned power. You're getting Reggie Gilliam in there, and you're just literally getting a pulling guard and Reggie Gilliam leading some blocks out to the front side, getting counter off that as well. You're also seeing, to Dave's point with how Josh Allen is running, you're seeing those pin and pulls and those counters start to work into Josh Allen's game. You're seeing a little GT bash with him, similar to what the Baltimore Ravens do with Lamar Jackson. So that run game has gotten diverse, and I expect them to continue with this gap scheme. We've talked about all year with this Bills offensive line that in a perfect world, right, the Bills have a top 5 offensive line. That would be fantastic. If we had like Tristan Wirfs and Batoni and Quentin Nelson and all these guys, like I would probably still keep Mitch Morse because he's fantastic.
Can we do that? Are we allowed to do that?
Can we adopt that? Is that an option?
I think there's some weird salary cap rule where if you play in a city where if you practice outside or indoors, I think it affects who you can take from other teams, or so I hear.
Real quick, before you go too far down this hole, for anyone listening, because I know we've got listeners out here, because every time we start talking about run schemes, I get the question, Can you real quick, without turning this into a 2-hour dissertation about the styles of runs, which I know you could easily go off and do, can you real quick explain the difference between gap and zone scheme so that people know what they're looking for tomorrow if they're running more of a gap scheme?
So zone, to make it in the easiest fashion, right? Zone is more about blocking an area, whereas gap is more about blocking a man. So in a zone run, it's more like we're going to run a zone to the outside. Again, trying to make this as simple as possible. So everybody, we're all going to take one step to the right. We're going to step in unison. Running back gets the ball. He gets to choose his own adventure and figure out where he's going to go. A gap run is more like we're going to down block this guy. This guy's going to pull. So gaps are, you're usually going to see down blocks and pullers. And the run is designed to go between the guard and the tackle, or it's designed to go between the center and the guard, or it's designed to go in this spot. So it's not so much choose your own adventure. Teams will.
A good way to watch for it when you're watching live is when you see all 5 linemen moving concert the same way. That's normally zone. When you see the crisscross and mismatch where they're trying to open up, just like Anthony was just saying, one hole, that's usually your combination of the pin and pull or power, where you're moving and they're going the opposite directions because you don't know who's going down and who's pulling out.
And just a little bit for today's NFL is a zone run league. Last year, over 9,000 zone runs, just above 3,000 gap runs. Zone run schemes pair very well with spread offenses, which majority of NFL teams today run some form of spread. So that's why you see a little more zone. But that's basically the difference in, trying to make it a simplest form of fashion. And so for, Bills fans, gap runs, those pin and pulls, to Greg's point, those runs where you see Mitch Morse leading out in front and you see Spencer Brown coming around, or Deion Dawkins or Darrell Williams or Ryan Bates. And the Bills are able to do that because of the athleticism they have on the offensive line holistically across the front, because of the addition of Ryan Bates and the insertion of Spencer Brown into this lineup. Before they were in there, this Bills line didn't really have an identity. They weren't really athletic. They weren't really overall physical. You had bits and pieces in each guy, but nothing that they could holistically and collectively hang their hat on. Now, you are seeing them be able to hang their hat on these gap runs. We're seeing it time and time again, really ever since the second half of that Tampa Bay game when Singletary busted off that big pin and pull run off the right side. And now that they have something to hang their hat on, it's a pivot in this offense where it's not just completely – that's fantastic. Dementors prefer zone runs because that's how they attack people. Dementors don't suck souls from a man position. It's a group effort, so it's zone. So Dementors are zone all day. Good question.
I appreciate Timber Tucker. It's very generous. Appreciate.
Side note, Anthony. Well, we're not going to go off too far. I started reading Harry Potter to my son tonight.
You like it?
That's awesome.
Does he like it?
He's not sure yet. He's not sure. We started the first chapter, first book. He's not there. He's got to get his feet wet.
He's got time. I didn't like it when I first started, so there's time. That's fine.
Yeah. Tilt, I want to go swing it back to you here for a second. The Bills have a very nice looking injury report this week. That's going to present some problems personnel wise for the inactives list tomorrow when we take a look at it. And talking about this run game, what are you expecting to see here from the running back room? Who's going to be active with, Emmanuel Sanders coming back? I'm assuming that pushes somebody out somewhere on this roster. What do you see them bringing in for running backs, and how do you expect this usage to go? I'm assuming we're all still thinking Devin Singletary's number one feature guy. He's going to get the bulk of the carries, but how do you see this running back room playing out for the playoffs?
I think in a game like tomorrow, you might see Singletary, Breida, and Moss all active, just given the health of the team. However, you're going to have to make some decisions then on the backside, probably on the defensive line or even the offensive line, who you're going to inactivate. So, people clamoring for more Boogie Basham and that type of thing. We'll see. Maybe Vernon Butler could be a surprise inactive tomorrow, but it wouldn't shock me at all to see all 3 guys active. Moss kind of, lost his way a little bit there. After he had some nice stretch of games, but he's had a couple nice games in a row now where he's had a good yards per carry. And the one thing I would say too about this is you look at the Pats, especially on DVOA run D, they're number 9 overall, but the weakness for them is really on first down. They're only 22nd in DVOA. So if you're thinking, hey, first down's a down we can attack the Pats on the ground, maybe you do see a guy like Matt Breida in play for some first down carries, for the Bills, just to mix things up a bit, maybe pop something big. But no, I think we're all in agreement here. Devin Singletary's been the guy. He's been the guy who's really, and I mentioned the last 4 games, but he's really been the most consistent guy all year, the whole season, and he should really get the lion's share, I would expect, and he's been running well. Like I said, 81 yards a game the last 4. You would never have thought that it would even been possible probably for a Bills running back this year, the way things were going. So I think, yeah, for sure, Singletary. Maybe you mix in Zach Moss, that 5-ish carries that he kind of got in the last few weeks. And, Matt Breida might be active tomorrow. So we'll see. But, yeah, Singletary is going to be the bulk.
Jason throwing a couple out here: Kumaro, Basham, Stevenson. I know Ron bringing up. I'm curious if the Joe Gillies-Harris was a nod to him for his work in practice, or if it's actually to activate him. Because an extra linebacker really throws off my math of
I don't.
Now
think
you're
so.
talking somebody else out of the equation here.
Yeah,
so.
I don't think it has to do with the game. I think it has to do with.
Yeah, respect to the work he's put in, and a nod to him. Although I do think Eli Ankow could be a legit activation. He was the other practice squad call-up. He's one where that's an easy swap in a run game dependent matchup like this. Vernon Butler out, and now Eli Ankow in, I think is an easy swap.
And I want to ask you a little bit now. Till Money brings up the DVOA side of the Patriots defense against the run being 9th overall. But watching that Miami game, I was licking my chops a little bit and what they were giving up on the ground. This Patriots defense over the last month has started to show some signs of weakness. There's a little bit of chinks in the armor of this defense a little bit. And I think it starts on that defensive line, a guy like Judon not being as impactful. I think their linebackers are pretty good against the run, but these guys aren't great linebackers. Were you watching that Miami film and licking your chops a little bit too for some of what the Bills have been able to produce in the run game, especially knowing how cold it's going to be?
Yeah, it was definitely something that stood out, especially because Miami has been so poor running the ball.
Yeah.
They are bad. They're bad in execution. They're bad in awareness.
Their offensive line's terrible.
Yes. 157 yards to Duke Johnson is bad. That's bad.
Well,
I do like Duke Johnson, but
I was gonna say Duke Johnson, University of Miami graduate, fantastic.
And Philip Lindsay. I actually kind of like Philip Lindsay too, but their offensive line is.
But the offensive line is so bad.
Yes, they don't execute well. They don't have an identity other than really just not being good, which isn't a good identity to have. Hunt,
trust me, I've had that my whole life. That identity, it's hard to shake.
It's not ideal. It just wears you.
Yeah, it just stays with you.
So to see them have success against that Patriots team, especially when coupled with like what Tua is as a quarterback, where everybody knows it's just going to be like RPO to death and like glance routes and slants.
Yeah, you can stack the box.
Correct. So to see them struggle like that was very interesting. And I wonder if it's, to Tilt's point, like, is this starting to be a structural thing that we're seeing in New England, or is this maybe like a one-off because Miami was juiced up on both sides of the ball? They were mashing New England on defense and offense. They were hyped up for that game. They wanted it. They weren't making the playoffs. When Xavier Howard picked off Mac Jones for that pick 6 in the first quarter, when it was 7-0, their sideline lit up like it just sent them to the Super Bowl. They wanted that game. So I think maybe some emotion piece into it too. But at the end of the day, the Patriots come in from a defensive standpoint and a run defense standpoint, not playing their best football. And the Bills come in with all of a sudden some kind of momentum and identity. We talked about the offensive line. We talked about Devin Singletary, who is I think, firmly entrenched as the RB1. First 12 games of the year, 408 total snaps, only one game with more than 60 snaps, and an average of 34 snaps per game. His last 5 games, 306 total snaps, 4 games with more than 60 snaps, and an average of 61 snaps per game. This is his backfield. The Bills have a rhythm in pairing with that offensive line. They've got chemistry. I think we will see some success on the ground. It's just a matter of what kind of rhythm the Bills get into on offense and how Dable puts those things together with the run and the pass and the mix. But I think we will see some success on the ground.
Now, Till, I'm going to flip the script a little bit and pass it over to you. We just talked about the Bills running game and some of those successes that they've had. But let's be honest, right? If the Patriots have a shot in this one, it's going to be on their running game. Last time we saw them still, even though they didn't beat us up like we saw in the first matchup, they still had a nice day on the ground without Ramondre Stevenson. I know this is the thing that's keeping me up tonight is their running game. I do think, the shuffling that's may be occurring along the offensive line without Isaiah Wynn will have some impact on the running game, but having those two healthy backs and the style of those backs, knowing how cold it is, knowing that Patriots don't want to put the ball in Mac Jones' hands, right? They want to pound the ball on the ground. How nervous are you about this run game getting going, and how confident are you that the Bills left that in the past with the Jerry Sullivan, "Are you embarrassed?" comment about this defense and the issues in the run game?
I would just caution people to not puff their chest out too much about what the Bills' run D has done the last 2 weeks. Obviously, they held the Jets and Falcons both under 100 yards, but in my opinion, the Bills' run D really has not been tested the last 2 games holistically. The 4 games prior to that was 222 against the Pats, 137 against the Bucks, 151 against the Panthers, 149 again against the Pats, 165 a game against teams with pretty good rushing offenses. So to take your phrase, Aaron, maybe pump the brakes a little bit on the Bills' rush D. What I'd really like to see is, obviously, we want them to force Mac into second and third and longs, but first down is going to be critical. The Bills really need to stop the Pats on first down. Bills are only 20th in defensive DVOA on rushing defense on first down, so it's a weakness of the Bills' defense as well. So that kind of lines up, I think, for a potential successful game plan. If you're the Patriots, that's exactly what you have to do, like you said. And the Bills have to realize, I think, going into this game, that just because you did what you did against Atlanta and the Jets, that's not really a representation, I think, of what your run defense has been for the better part of the season as far as allowing yards. And we know against both games against the Pats, they did allow some chunky plays on the ground. So avoid the big plays, right? Make the Pats, if they're going to run it that much, make them try to run it 10, 12 times on a drive, right? Like, get off the field on third down. Don't give up these 20, 30-yard runs like you did in both games. Get off the field on third down, stop them on first down, which is obviously easier said than done, but that to me is the success down for the Bills in this game. First down defense for me.
Yeah. Betting that they can't, not that they won't ever put together a 12 to 15 play drive, but bet that they can't do it over and over again.
Right.
Say, hey, you want to know what? Maybe you can.
You're not going to do it 4 times.
Yeah. Maybe you can do it twice. You can't do it all game.
And if he does, if the Patriots do that, Mac Jones does it, it's one of those like, okay, like tip your hat. Like you hit my best pitch and you knocked it out.
Yes.
Like, well done. But we just don't think you're going to hit it. And if you do, good for you.
In basketball, sometimes you have to know that one guy's going to get his on you. And if it's Mac Jones getting his, like, you can live with that. You can live with Mac. If Mac Jones beats us, congratulations. Fantastic. But I don't want it to be Ramondre Stevenson beating us again to the tune of a couple 100+ yards with the ground game.
Yeah.
So let's start with you, Dave. Let's go through, what do you guys expect tomorrow and what's your score prediction?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think this is going to be like a boxing match style, feeling them out the first, maybe even the first half. These teams obviously know each other very well. We split in the regular season. Even in that second game against the Pats, where we end up winning by 12 points, kind of let them hang around. We didn't really seal the deal so much until late in the game. And the Pats, like I just mentioned, were still able to run the ball pretty well. So to me, I think success for the Bills means getting up early in this game. Try to make this a 2-possession game as early as you possibly can, even if that means 10 points, that's fine. But I do expect it to be a little bit more of a slugfest. And that's not such a bad thing with how the Bills have been running the ball lately. If they can sort of assert their will and keep the Patriots guessing, like I mentioned, that third dimension of the offense with Josh running the ball on top of the traditional run-o and pass-o, the Bills have a really good chance here. I like them. I like the Bills to win. They're at home. I think that this clears another mental hurdle for them in this whole Pats-Bills history over the last 20 years. We know they've beaten them now in the regular season. Can they now do it in the playoffs and clear another mental hurdle and get over on this Patriots organization? I think they can, and I think they win in a game that's maybe a little bit lower scoring than people predict. I'll say Bills 24, Patriots 16.
I like it.
I like it. I like where your head's at. Anthony, what do you expect to see tomorrow? I like Charles seeing if we can dare us to do a melt a Bill's brain conversation to go through. So, hey, Anthony, what do you expect from a game? Just like David walked us through, and then what do you have for a score prediction?
So I'm going to start with the score prediction. I'm not doing one because I'm superstitious and I'm too afraid.
He told me this earlier. He was like, I won't do it.
And Aaron sent me the
I already told him how lame he is.
He just sent me the Kanye gift of just staring and being a...
No, that's fine. We don't need him anymore.
Yeah.
I knew it. As soon as I saw you look down in a way, I was like, I'm getting booted. I feel it.
So one real quick, while we got you on the air in front of all the people, because you are probably, I have some superstitions and I go through some things and I'll do some things tonight. But you might be the most superstitious person I know in some of the
for sure on our squad.
Yeah,
out of the Cover One crew, you're for sure the most.
For sure out of the people I know too. So I want to put you out there that if the Bills lose this game, it's because you screwed something up in your superstition somewhere along the lines.
You don't have to put it out there. I'll blame myself. Like I didn't sit in the right position. I didn't wear the right thing. I got no problems accepting that. Like that's on me. Right. I'll take it. It's my fault. But as far as non-score predictions, so just from a game plan standpoint, I expect the Bills to be aggressive on first and second down. I expect to see run blitzes. I expect to see mugging the A-gaps and crowding the line of scrimmage and showing different looks and either bringing that or that's awesome. Yeah, I'm not superstitious, but I am a little stitious, Michael Scott. I expect to see them bring pressure. I expect to see them show pressure and drop out and play games with Mac Jones and this Patriots offense. Conversely, I think the Pats, obviously, I think they're going to want to establish the run. I expect early. Right now, when I say early, I mean the first drive. I think the Patriots go play action on their first drive right out of the gate to start to get Mac Jones into a rhythm, get some cheap yards.
Test it. And plant the seed in the Bills defense.
You got nothing to lose.
To make you think like, nope, you can't just sell out on the run against us. And especially, too, the last time the Bills and Pats played in Week 16, well done. That's funny. Well done, Roman. There's the tape from the Week 16 game. The Bills were super aggressive on first and second down on the very first offensive series of the Patriots in New England. They had 3 linebackers in. They were creeping forward. As soon as the ball was snapped, they fired forward. On the second play, they brought a safety blitz from Micah Hyde. That was a run blitz, but Mac Jones kept it on play action. Hyde pressured Jones. Jones threw it into Gregory Rousseau's face. I think the Patriots counter that to a degree. Belichick is, as much as we all don't want him to be, and as much as he cheats and does whatever that everybody wants to say, he is a very good man with a game plan. He is good at playing 4D chess and all that stuff.
I'm terrified of him getting a third crack at this team.
That's one of the big things. Like he's got 2 games and one very recent to put together a game plan and figure out how to beat you, figure out how to mitigate his weaknesses, amplify his strengths, and do the opposite in you. So for as much as I think, we especially in that film when we did a lot of breakdowns in terms of like the tendencies and how to attack, that's all based on like how you can do that and what you can do. But then when it comes time to the game, you have to be able to adjust in that moment. I think Belichick's going to throw something different at this Bills team, especially offensively. I think you maybe might even see some play action and some vertical shots just to, again, try and test that a little bit and let you know that the possibility is there. I think they want to get Mac Jones into... Yep. I think you want to get Mac Jones into a rhythm early and then lean on that run game. But I expect the Bills to be aggressive. I expect them to be fast. And then on the offensive side of the ball, I expect the same thing. I expect variability in the offense. I expect them to attack this Patriots defense. And if Matt Judon and that defense, is really, like they said, like Judon said in his presser, they want to contain Josh Allen, make him beat you from the pocket. We're going to see if Josh Allen can beat them from the pocket like he did in Week 16. But I expect a versatile, multiple attack on offense and a good mixing of the run, similar to what we've seen, honestly, the last several weeks on the first drives for the Bills, where they're mixing in regular runs, RPOs, quick passes, medium, intermediate, all that kind of stuff. So I'm expecting the Bills to be aggressive on both sides of the ball and really take it to New England, and whatever we see happens. Awesome. He brought in my intro from Disguise Coverage.
Maybe one of my favorite comments that we've had so far is fantastic. So that's for anyone who doesn't understand this, you need to go watch Casino because it's not acceptable to not understand.
Oh, that's fantastic. So that made my night.
But thank you guys. Real quick before we move on to our next set of guests, let us know where we can find you, Dave. Where can the good people find your good work?
Yeah, mostly I'm on Twitter at Tilton Money, as you see on the screen. My co-host of the Bills Guys, Steve Mathis, is on there. He's very active.
To Steve. He's in the process of moving right now. Yep. Otherwise, he'd be here tonight with us too.
And he said his number one priority was making sure he had internet at his new house for tomorrow so we could do our pregame show before the game. So tune in tomorrow. We're going on live at 6 8:30. So we'll have an hour and a half of live coverage leading up into the game. So if you don't want to watch the national dudes talk out of their ass, you can come watch us. We're going to have guests on for an hour and a half.
With the pregame.
Yeah, I love the pregame.
And we'll be on pregame. So join us in the comment section as always. And yeah, we'll be ready.
Anthony, how are you going to break the record for most consecutive podcast guest hosts?
I just want to say one thing as far as superstitions. You have to buy a ticket. If the Bills are 3-0 this year with you at the stadium, dude, you have to go. Like, it's on you. Do it.
You can DM me. I will buy your ticket.
Do it.
I will buy you a ticket. There's a ton of them out there for like $40. I got you. If we're 3-0 with you going to the game, I will buy you a ticket to go to the game.
Get there. Whatever you got to do. As far as breaking, podcast records, I don't know. I'm trying. I'm exhausted. I'm going to need to down some Pedialyte and maybe an IV tonight and see what happens. But find me on Twitter at pro__ant. That's pro 2_ANT. Find me as the host of Disguise Coverage live every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Find me as the co-host of The Film Room with Mr. Eric Turner, usually live on every Tuesday at 7 p.m. And find me as one of the 3 co-hosts of the Cover One post game, along with the man to my top, Mr. Greg Tompsett, and the other man to my, I got it close, my diagonal left,
the 2 man on top
Mr. Aaron Quinn. Yeah, that's how I like it.
We got another offer now. Somebody's offering a ticket and a beer and a pretzel.
Look at that. How could you?
It's just everybody just keeps trumping all
cold
the
ass pretzel.
Oh,
it's gonna be.
That will not be a soft pretzel.
No. Bart Scott was trying to firm up people's pretzels too. So, all right, hey, Anthony, Dave, we appreciate you guys. We'll talk later.
Thanks, guys.
Boom.
Thank you guys. Go Bills.
Without
bring them back in.
ado,
Don't just throw them in.
Our next guest
these handsome
coming
fellas.
up, Kyle of Cover One Roundup fame, and his recent co-host over here, Mr. David. How we doing, sir?
A little less chest hairy tonight.
Yeah. Well, I think when you say fireball, it talks about the fire,
the fire chest.
It kind of offsets it.
I tried thinking of a way to top that. I was like, you know what? I just can't be bothered to do this tonight. So we're just gonna roll with this.
I like it.
Kyle, we're doing good. Doing good.
How we doing, sir?
I'm doing great. Coming in just in time. You're giving away Bills tickets here, so
yeah, right.
I mean, I'm 2-1 at the stadium. The loss was the Colts loss, so. I mean, I might not.
Yeah, we don't want you there.
I might not be the best luck, but if we're giving away tickets, I'll take
Disqualified.
Well, here actually, so we're talking about tickets, and I want to talk to you guys a little bit about storylines here going into this game. So let's jump right into that because you couldn't pay me to go to this game. I love the Bills. I was at the Panthers game. It took my feet an extra 3 hours after that. There was 26 degrees at that game. The bleachers, I was sitting where the employee section is behind the tunnel, and it's all bleachers. It was freezing cold to sit on. It was totally uncomfortable. My feet were totally frozen. Took hours to thaw out. You're going to tell me that it's going to be 25 degrees colder than that, and I have to stand out there for 4 hours. I don't care if it's the playoffs or not. You couldn't pay me to go there. So would you even take free tickets and go stand out there? Either one of you guys? We'll start with Kyle.
I was on the phone earlier with my friend who has season tickets but didn't buy the extra or the playoff tickets because apparently you don't even get a discount. It's just market price for the playoff tickets. So it's kind of stupid.
You just get first access. You don't actually get any discount
silly.
Or any. You have to pay whatever the market playoff rate is. You don't even get to pay your season ticket rate.
It's hard being a billionaire these days. Okay,
right,
yeah. So
someone needs to pay for the stadium. Us, but
anyway.
But I was talking to my friend and I was like, even if someone gave me tickets, I don't think I own the proper clothing to stand outside for 4 hours.
There's no proper clothing
with
this.
Negative 20-degree wind chill. I just don't have that type of attire, unfortunately. So no, I would not go. And I think that, I don't want to cut off David here at all. But I think he's a Florida guy anyway, so no, he's certainly not going.
We live in Florida, so I went to
but all that chest hair is like a natural
layer. Yeah.
I went to college outside Chicago for 4 years. Let me tell you, I've had my share of ice and wind. I'm good. So we're gonna take a hard pass on that.
I honestly, I talked about it. I would need to be given really nice club seats with the indoor setup where I could like bounce in and out and I could do.
They have some of the heaters above some of them too. When you see on this, like the ones that are glowing red, that's all heaters. I could do that.
Yeah, I would need like 10-minute shifts where I could like sit out there, then I could go inside and grab a drink and a little something to eat and watch it on the TV, then back outside for a minute. That's it. Like I don't have any need to prove my manhood by standing out in that for 3 hours. Yeah, nothing.
Yeah, I don't have any of that. So there's nothing to prove. But David, I want to ask you now that we're talking about the cold. I've been super annoyed by this conversation all week long. I'm sort of in the Harrison Phillips camp of, I think it's a dumb narrative that just sort of gotten drummed up this week, probably more than need to. I think it'll have impact on this game without a doubt. But that this is such an important game and there's so many X's and O's to talk about, but this sort of came to the top. But what type of impact do you foresee this type of cold? Like, it's not going to be just 30 degrees out. Like it's going to be significantly dangerously cold to just be hanging out outside. What kind of impact do you think that has on a football game?
Not much. Yeah. I mean, like you said, this is just a dumb thing that people keep bringing up because I think people still have like a level of PTSD from like the Monday night game,
right?
Of just like, oh my God, they just needed like one drive to finish and they couldn't do it, and it's because of the cold, it's because of the wind, blah 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 blah. Whatever. Okay, like it's not. First of all, it's not going to be even remotely close to what it was in that Monday night game. It's just not. But then the other part of this is like, I keep thinking like all these different parts and pieces that go into a particular playoff game, especially against a team like the Patriots. You've played twice now. This is your third time playing them against a coach like Bill Belichick. And yet, every time I think about this, the Bills just come out as the better team. That doesn't always matter to a Bill Belichick Patriots team.
Right.
But like
he's found ways to win with less.
Of course. And like you could even go back to like 2010 when they should have beaten the Rex Ryan Jets at home. They were 14-2. Tom Brady hadn't thrown a pick since like October or September of that year. And then on like the first drive of the game, he overthrows a screen to what was that guy? David Harris. Of all linebackers, David Harris. And it's just like stuff happens in the playoffs. But like, in what scenario is Mac Jones winning a playoff game with the way he's been playing the last month?
Yeah,
I can't picture a scenario where that happens.
On top of that, I'm pretty sure I saw a stat earlier in the week that in wild card playoff games, Belichick's 0-3, I think, in his last wild card playoff game. Like he has needed that first round bye to have success in the playoffs when his team's a wild card.
This is the deep level.
They had like 15 of them. But
yes. But when he's had to play in the wild card, it hasn't been great. Real quick before we continue on and move on to questions, I didn't see her earlier in the chat, but Lauren is here in the chat tonight. It is her birthday tonight, so everybody in the chat, wish Lauren a happy birthday. Big time supporter of all of us here at Cover One. Super funny on Twitter. If you're not following on Twitter, get on it, follow her, and it's a happy birthday to you, Lauren. Thanks for joining us on your birthday.
Yes, thank you.
Nick, I think Mac Jones has milk in his bag of tricks.
Yes. Mac Jones is undefeated in the playoffs. That's a stat that no one is talking about.
True. 0 out of 0 is a stat.
Undefeated.
So, let's talk about some of these other storylines, Kyle. What are some of the storylines in this game that stand out to you the most outside of the weather? Like, what are you looking at? Sort of not even just X's and O's, but how this game matches up with these two franchises.
Right. I do just want to talk about the weather quickly.
I'm
sorry. Everyone has had their weather takes all week. I have to get in on it.
Yeah. Let's hear it.
As Aaron, you live in Buffalo, I do believe. I don't want to dox you, but I live in Buffalo. I think we can attest to, and everyone can attest to, that it gets to a point at times where it's just cold. Like cold is cold, whether it's 20 degrees, like 10 degrees,
March now.
0 degrees. It's just cold. It feels the same. So like, and it's not like the Bills haven't played in cold weather before. So have the Patriots. Like it's much to do about nothing, in my opinion, as David said. Like, I don't really think it's going to impact the game at all. But moving on, I think that everyone has talked about it on this podcast here so far, basically. But I think this game for the Bills is won one, by limiting big run plays. If they limit the Patriots on the ground, keep Damian Harris in check, keep Ramondre Stevenson in check, and really limit the big plays on the ground, I think they win the game. I know Anthony was just saying a couple minutes ago that what was he saying? No, he was saying, he said a lot, had a lot of Harry Potter references, but that he expected Mac Jones, the Patriots, to get Mac Jones involved in play action early. I don't really think that's going to be the case. Like, it could be, obviously, and Anthony's much smarter about football than I am, but I think it's pretty clear that the Patriots do not trust Mac Jones against this Bills defense. Threw 3 passes the first game and threw 30 something the last time they played, and he only completed 14
while they were behind.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and obviously they had to come back. That's why they really had Mac Jones throw, as they were behind. So they had to, and again, he only completed 14 of those throws. So obviously Mac Jones doesn't do well against this Bills defense, and Bill Belichick really doesn't trust him to do well against this Bills defense. So I do expect the run game, especially considering you guys were talking about it, Mac Jones in this weather. The weather will impact both quarterbacks, and with Mac Jones, I think it impacts him more than it impacts Josh Allen, just because Mac Jones doesn't have the athleticism on the ground, right? He doesn't have. Basically, you're eliminating more from Mac Jones's game than you are from Josh Allen's game, in my opinion, at least. So I think they are going to focus on the ground, and the Bills need to do better in this game, stopping the Patriots on the ground, than they did in the past 2 games. Again, the first game, they allowed 222 rushing yards against the Patriots, and then last game, 149. That's a combined 371 yards in 2 games. That is like a big play away from allowing 200 rushing yards per game, roughly, against one team. So, and the Bills defense, largely a middling unit against the run to close the season. They finished 13th while finishing first in like every other stat defensively, first in scoring, first in total defense, first against the pass, and then against the run 13th. So again, it comes down to, can this Bills run defense limit the big play? And which kind of goes into my next storyline, which I won't get too into right now, but can you make Mac Jones a factor? Can you make the Patriots rely on Mac Jones to make plays? Because if you do that, I think you've placed yourself in a good position to win.
Well, I got a question for David, sort of off of those ideas, right? So I agree with you, Kyle, that Bill Belichick wants to establish the run. I think he sees that weakness in the Bills defense and wants to go back, dip into that pot again. But sort of, we talked about this a little bit earlier, and Evan Lazar talked about it with us this week. The Patriots season is already a success, right? They're coming into this, whether or not they win this game, this is a success for them. They got to the playoffs with a rookie quarterback, with a roster that they didn't probably feel was really as good as they were playing at a certain point this year. So does some of that allow you to have a little YOLO? You only live once with Mac Jones, and put it out there, because you don't really have anything to lose. You can take those shots. Not that they're, a desperate team that's just going to like come out and do a lot of fake punts and stuff, but can you take some shots and try to push Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer back off the line a little bit and clear and get some spacing for these receivers to work? Or are they just going to stick to that conservative mindset and really get into this game and try to win with their strengths?
Peer pressure works.
Peer pressure on the internet.
Yeah, Chief is now going to the game.
Yes, peer pressure on the internet works 100% of the time.
Oh, that's great. I got one for you guys here. With the narrative of...
Well, hold on. They got to answer my question. Are we going to go YOLO?
Greg just said go.
I got distracted by Chief going to the game.
I mean, if this were a different team with a different coach, maybe... But are you really convincing Bill Belichick to deviate from game plan, or like from like a something that's worked in the past? I don't necessarily see that happening. That being said, like, we know that Josh McDaniels just has like a massive playbook full of all sorts of stuff he could just throw out there with different trick. But I expect to see at least 2 trick plays tomorrow, maybe more. Especially if especially if they're like down early and they just need to like get something to kind of break momentum up. But I just can't see them like. What exactly is that gonna be? Are they gonna like take 3 different deep shots at Nelson Aguilar?
Oh, who's the former quarterback? Is it Jacoby Myers, the one that can throw the ball forever?
Yeah,
I can see some like 25, 35 yard post stuff to Hunter Henry. Maybe I think like he's a guy that can create some separation and stretching that defense with Aguilar a little bit and just taking those shots to let them know, hey, we're willing to. We're willing to take some shots in this game.
I'm sure with Aguilar there, that's part of the plan, but I just can't quite when it comes down to it. If this is like a relatively even game, I feel like they're going to stick with what they know, just running the ball with Stevenson and Harris, rather than trying to just keep pushing the ball with a rookie quarterback with a set of skilled players that aren't super advantageous. Like they just don't have those guys at the moment, unless you really believe in N'Keal Harry, which
I do not.
Nobody outside of New England seems
though.
to. Great blocker, great crackback blocker. Good job.
He's like half of a Gabe Davis.
You can do everything my high school teammate did. Good job. N'Keal Harry. Good job.
How about you, Kyle?
Regarding if they're going to stretch the field, like
do you think we'll see more of the grab bag?
They can want to, but can they? I mean, as David was saying,
we saw maybe the ugliest flea flicker I've ever seen in my life in the last game. Like it was just a putrid attempt at a flea flicker.
Right. And like they can want to be as aggressive as they want with Mac Jones. But I mean, this is a Bills coaching staff that feasts on young quarterbacks. Now, a lot of people feast on rookie quarterbacks. I mean, that's kind of in the name of the game. But McDermott and Frazier, in the 5 years that they've been here against rookie quarterbacks, they combined for 5 touchdowns and 20 interceptions. If you want to place Mac Jones in the situation to just play YOLO ball, and let him take risks and put him at more risk to make mistakes, I mean, that's not a favorable matchup against McDermott and Frazier. So, hey, if you want to do it, if you do want to stray from running the ball with Mac Jones in Buffalo in 0-degree weather, be my guest. Let's see what happens.
So one of my questions from a narrative standpoint is the boogeyman of Bill Belichick and what that represents as far as preparation, as far as the fear we talked about with this third game. David, you talked about, is he really going to deviate from his structure and his plan? If I try to talk myself into what is a recipe for a Patriots inlay, what would it take? In my mind, it's him coming up with literally they come out in Wildcat and run Wildcat for the whole first half. They come out and we see just something totally off the wall that we haven't seen before from a defensive standpoint, with just cover zero blitz over and over and over again, saying, hey, I dare you to be able to connect on one of these. What are some of the things, and I'll start with you, Kyle, on what are some of the things with the mystique of Belichick that you could see being a storyline coming out of this game?
I'm not Bill Belichick, obviously one of the greatest coaches of all time, right? Like probably the greatest coach of all time. But I'm not overly concerned. I've seen people saying I'm not going to bet against Bill Belichick. I was watching a podcast earlier and this person was like, the Bills have already beat the Patriots once this year. And it's hard to beat Bill Belichick twice in 1 year. And, now they have 2 games of tape and, Bill Belichick, is going to get him, third time's the charm, if you will. And it's like, well, Sean McDermott beat him twice last year. You can make the argument probably should have beat him twice this year if they're not playing.
I don't think they got out coached in that first game. I really know.
No, they should. Arguably, the Bills should be 4-0 against the Patriots in the last 2 years. When the Bills have the more talented roster than the Patriots these last 2 years, the Bills again haven't been out coached. So I'm not overly concerned. David, I'll let you take over here because you might have more more insightful comments, but to me it just comes down to the Bills have to do what they have to do. They have to show up, really practice what they preach, or deliver on what they've been practicing all week. And I think they should be able to win. Again, we'll get to predictions in a couple of minutes here, but I'm not overly concerned about this game.
McDermott, ever since McDermott has been in Buffalo, he's given the Patriots a pretty solid punch every time they've played, except for Allen's rookie year, essentially.
Right, Derek Anderson, Monday Night Football.
Never forget opening the game, 2 straight plays, Shady McCoy at Wildcat. That's when you knew what kind of game that was going to be.
I think Terrell Pryor was active for that game. If you guys want to have a little people in chat, just kind of think about how far we've come as a football team. Terrell Pryor was playing on Monday Night Football 3 years ago or 4 years ago. Now we're here.
Bananas.
I was going to make a Lafayette Pitts joke, but I don't want to hurt you. I don't want to hurt your feelings.
Hey, my sports writing career is a joke. It's just as Lafayette Pitts' football career. So go for it.
So, but McDermott has been pretty consistent about like giving good shots at Belichick, and especially now that he has what I definitely feel to be the superior roster at the moment. I mean, it's just been 3 out of 4 wins. And should be 4 wins, quite frankly. We all know that. But it's just a matter of we've seen this Bills team this year struggle to just execute when they need to do it in these big moments. Outside of like the Chiefs game, I guess. But again, they beat opponents that they're supposed to beat. That's been the one thing. I was never concerned about, will we actually lose to the Falcons? Will we lose to the Jets? And it's like, no. That's not a thing that's going to happen with this team. But this is a Patriots. This is the playoffs. Weird stuff happens in the playoffs too. Ultimately, I think the Bills get a good, solid win and move forward. I think the Patriots just don't have the firepower to keep up. I think their defense, having faced Josh Allen for a 3rd time, they acknowledge and understand there's only so much they can do. There's only so much any defense can do. He is a physical specimen beyond reproach. He is absurd in what he can do. And they know we saw that in the second game where he's throwing
maybe
back
his best game ever.
Absolutely his best game ever. I mean, he's throwing back across his body, shoveling the pass to Diggs. He's hurdling another defender again for like the 3rd time in his career because that's a thing that he does that other quarterbacks can't do. I mean, there's only so much you can do. And I'm not saying we're going to get yet another career performance from Josh Allen because that seems statistically improbable. It would be nice, though. I feel like that would wrap up the game pretty quickly. But overall, I'm not overly concerned. I feel like I should be way more nervous, and tomorrow I definitely will be because I'll just have spent all day looking at all the. I'm just like, wait, what about this? What about this? What about this? What about this? Here's another thing. And I know Joe Marino brought this up earlier with injuries. I mean, Isaiah Wynn being out is pretty big for them. That is a big thing. I mean, he had a tough time getting onto the scene in the NFL because of injuries and whatnot, but he's been the guy that they wanted him to be this year. And Jalen Mills seems like he is definitely out.
Sal reported that it's official.
Yeah, I think
4:30 reported he had to be activated today.
And Jalen Mills is not like some super demon type of DB.
Right.
But he's
better than the backup.
Right. And he's a versatile type of guy, which is what the Patriots really like because you can move him and rotate him into different areas and disguise coverages. Hey, watch disguise coverage. That those two are out. Here's another thing that I don't think enough people have talked about. I don't know if I've seen it at all.
The weather.
But the second game, Starlo Tulele was not active.
Yeah.
And obviously the Patriots had success running the ball because they have a great offensive line. But with Isaiah Wynn being out, Starlo Tulele being active, and I don't know what kind of major impact in terms of like splash plays Starlo Tulele is going to have because that's just not his game.
Right.
But I think that if he is playing at a above average level, which I know we have seen him play at before, especially earlier this season,
right,
he will make the little marginal differences playing at that one tech that over the course of the game will just sort of whittle down the Patriots rushing production in particular.
Well, the combination what the new version of
Harrison's heading this way too.
Right, exactly.
So now instead of having a Vernon Butler as a backup guy, now if we can just get 30% of snaps of an actual full strength star, that combination of the new Harrison Phillips and then only needing an intense burst of star here and there, maybe that can equate to something.
And especially in those cup fronts that they like to use against the Patriots, having them and Ed Oliver on the field at the same time with like Rousseau and probably Hughes and Addison. I think that could be one of those little things that just makes a difference. And
I'm also only good for short
intense first. So real quick, let me get this in from Randy. Really generous contribution here. Congrats to Cover One on acquiring all the elite Bills content providers. We've had fantastic guys on tonight, showing the depth of our squad of everybody that's there. Continued success, and know your hard work is appreciated. If we score a touchdown first, we win and send Bill Belichick home embarrassed with concerns about his wannabe TB12 MJ10. I do agree with Randy there that I think
score first.
Early, get a lead early makes a huge difference. I think if the Patriots score first, the Bills can still come back. I don't think the Patriots are built to come back. So if the Bills jump out early, I think it can be a very good thing. If the Patriots score early, the Bills have a chance. It's harder because they are a front-running team in the same sense of their run game. But I think Randy's spot on there. I appreciate that very much.
To Randy's point, I said this in a DM earlier today too. Like, one of the things I want most for my birthday tomorrow is sideline shots of angry Belichick, phone smashing Belichick. Mac Jones just like doesn't know what to do with himself, like looking at that tablet, like, what are they doing to me? What is going on? Like, I want all that sideline, just chaos. Give me chaos.
Great. Really appreciate the compliment here from Eric. Really love the show. Perfect balance of fandom and objectivity. Keep it up.
That's what we're striving for.
That's what we try. We try to be reasonable, not crazy.
We are fans
all the time, but we are fans. That's right. So before we get you guys out of here, we'll start with you, Kyle. What are we going to see tomorrow? Give us some numbers.
Well, I have one last storyline that I kind of want to talk about. It's just kind of not really particular to this game, but just kind of overarching the entire Sean McDermott era here. Like, obviously, neither David nor I think this is going to be the last game of the playoff run. But, I mean, anytime you play in a win-or-go-home game, that's always a possibility. Yeah. But this is the playoff run that this entire rebuild has been about. It literally, this playoff run, like last year was great, 2019 was great, but this is the team that they've been building. It finally prepared to, they have the playoff experience, prepared to make that Super Bowl run, hypothetically. And they've been lucky enough to keep the core intact for most parts, not in terms of players necessarily, but they've done that too, but in terms of coaching staff and executives, with Brian Dable still being here somehow, Leslie Frazier, Joe Shane is still in the front office. This is probably the last year where all of those guys are here, whether Dable takes a job, Frazier takes a job, or Shane takes a job and takes one of them. I mean, this is probably the last run where this core that McDermott and Bean have built are all intact. So I just think at some point this playoff run, hopefully not tomorrow, hopefully it's in a couple of weeks from now when we're watching the Bills lift the Lombardi Trophy and we can just kind of think back and reflect on what this team has been able to do these last 5 years. One of the most successful eras in team history, certainly the most successful era in my time watching the Bills. I just think it's important that we take some time to reflect on what they've been able to do, because, again, this is probably the last go around for this particular group of people. So looking more specifically at this game tomorrow, again, I like the Bills. I like what you guys were saying about how if they jump out early, it's going to be difficult for the Patriots to come back. Like, I think if they're up like 17-3 or 17-6 in the second quarter, it's over. You can basically call it, because, again, if they have to rely on Mac Jones, they're not going to win. I think if they win, it's through the ground game. If Mac Jones throws 30 passes again, I don't think they win this game. So I'm going to go 27-17 win for the Bills.
I like it. Before we get your prediction here, David, a complete stranger thinks you're doing a really good job.
Total stranger. Never heard of this person. They definitely also didn't get me a signed Joshua Patrick Allen jersey.
You better get yourself a frame for that.
Awesome. Now, here's the other thing. We're talking about superstitions with Anthony. I mean, we've been undefeated ever since this purchase was made. That's all I'm saying. That's
keep
all I'm
everything
saying.
in the same position.
Keep that exactly where that is.
Exactly where you've had it. It needs to stay right there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So as far as predictions goes, I think Bills win this game. I agree. I was actually going to say the exact same score as Kyle, actually, 27-17. I think the Patriots, I would love to see 30-ish points. I think the Patriots defense is too good to try and push 30 points on them in a third matchup. That would be, I'd love to see that, but I don't think that's going to happen. But I think 27-17, I just can't see the Patriots scoring enough points to win this game unless it just becomes a weird defensive slugfest. I don't necessarily see that happening as much as people want to think the weather's going to make that happen for them. Yeah.
Well,
so anybody who hasn't seen it, David's been fantastic as a co-host for Kyle on the roundup. We're really loving what you guys have going with chemistry there. Let the people know where they can find you online and what work you have coming up here. We'll start with you, Kyle.
You can find me on Twitter at Kyle Silagyi. I usually have it on my name thing because it's an impossible name.
I was going to say, that's a tough one for people to look up.
Just trust that I'm on Twitter. If you look hard enough, you can find me. You can also find me each and every Monday night on the Cover One Roundup on the Cover One YouTube channel.
Beautiful. David.
People can find me on Twitter at dfoxy. Yes, that is how you say my last name, Faux, Fox. It's not Faux. It's very confusing. I understand all that. And then I write a weekly recap after each game. If y'all want to watch or read that, feel free to do so. And follow me on Twitter because I have some extremely lukewarm takes for you.
Yeah, I love it.
Appreciate it. You've been killing it. We appreciate all your work with us as well.
Yeah, and thanks so much, guys, and enjoy the game.
You guys.
Let's go.
All right, go Bills.
While we're switching to our next set here, want to bring up another comment here. Great coverage, guys. I've been nervous and obsessing over this game all week. Now it's Friday night, and I've had a couple drinks, and have noticed my confidence is growing. I shall use this formula tomorrow. Liquid courage. Keep it coming.
Get some This is why we have alcohol.
Yeah. Right. Uncle Jumbo's will bring you all the courage that you need. You'll be just fine. All right. Thanks, guys. We'll talk soon.
Thanks, guys.
And next, without further ado, our tandem from the hoof, Anthony Romeo and Sterling Furrow. How are we doing, gentlemen?
Heyo, feeling really good, doing the same thing. I got my glass of wine tonight. That's what I'm rolling with.
But you look with that blazer on, you look like a wine drinker.
Exactly. It's trying to relax tonight, but at the same time, I know I'm not going to sleep. It's crazy. I'm ready to go.
Beautiful.
What are you drinking, Sterls?
Water.
My man, stay hydrated.
Hydrate for tomorrow.
Yeah, me too, man.
So obviously,
go ahead, jump in.
Yeah, we're gonna have you guys jump in on. We've talked about the trenches. We've talked about the running game. We talked about the storylines. Now let's talk about the razzle dazzle. Let's talk
sexy
about
part.
The skill positions in these games. We'll start with you, Sterling. We'll start with, are there any skill position players on the Patriots? What is your thoughts?
Yeah, I love it.
You're going to get Anthony all riled up. He's going to start yelling at us about how much the Patriots suck. Come on.
Wow.
I'm trying to keep this a friendly show.
Well, is water wet?
Yeah. How about this? What I think that if there's any recipe for a Patriots upset, you're talking about hitting on a couple play action home runs. Do you think, obviously there's a higher likelihood of that with Nelson Aguilar. Do you think that he's someone that adds an element to this game that gives you any level of concern?
Yeah, I just think his threat down the field. He's a guy, whether we like it or not, he can stretch the field.
He's fast. He doesn't always catch it, but he's fast.
I mean, even if, when you're in high school, you put the fastest guy out there, just tell him run 9 routes. I mean, eventually they're going to throw one to him eventually. Now, I'm not saying he's going to catch it or whatever, but there is a threat there. I think the big thing is we all know Mac Jones like to throw the short intermediate passes. I think we're going to see a lot of the screen game. We're going to see a lot of that. They want to expect the Bills to miss tackles because we all know this isn't a great tackling team. So when you got guys like Ramondre Stevenson, Damian Harris in the screen game, and they got two pretty good tight ends with, they're pretty good. So I think they're going to try to attack the Bills with that short intermediate game,
lull them to sleep. A lot of tosses and sweeps and stuff, wham blocks and so forth. So to answer your question, yeah, they have a couple skill players, but I don't think it's something that I'm too afraid of.
Before you give us your answer, Anthony, Lauren's asking what kind of wine you're drinking.
Oh, it's actually a white wine. It's a Moscato sweet. This is the after dinner wine, if you will. So yeah, enjoying it tonight. It's a Finger Lakes wine too, local. Got to keep it local.
Nice. So how about you? What if you had to pick out a Patriots skill position guy that concerns you the most? What's the guy that you want the Bills to focus on?
Very similar to what Sterling says. I agree. I'll change the question you asked to, do they have any skill position players? Of course they do. Can they use them appropriately? Abso-freaking-lutely not. No. Hunter Henry is the guy that I would bring up because we've seen that this is a guy in his career who can be the most elite player on an offense, not just, at his position as a tight end. He's the best receiver on a team.
And in the last matchup, he was open.
Exactly.
All day long.
Exactly. The guy he must be so frustrated on the field because he's like, I'm doing literally everything I can. What the heck, guys?
At least he stayed healthy all season.
That was his goal, 17 right? Games. I didn't catch much, but I didn't get much thrown my way.
I didn't get hurt doing it.
So in the short passing game, I think what Sterling said is totally dead on. If they're going to have success against the Bills, they need to take advantage of that and make it work. I don't think they will very well, but Hunter Henry might get more targets because Nelson Aguilar is in this game, right? Even though the Bills didn't cover Hunter Henry well and he was open a lot, you just didn't get the ball. It's all on Mac Jones's shoulder to make that happen. So can Aguilar, can he have a big play or something? Sure. But is he going to be a difference maker on this team? I mean, that makes me laugh. No, he wasn't a difference maker on any team he's ever been on. Come on. Hunter Henry was, and they haven't been able to use him no matter who's around him. John Smith
bringing up the famous quote from the guy outside in Philly saving babies jumping out of windows. We was catching them, unlike Aguilar.
Hilarious. Yeah, so I mean, and John Smith, he could do they like to run the ball, those jet sweep type plays with him, which, is dangerous in some senses. If you're in the right formation, we're thinking pass all the way, we drop back, and they toss it to John Smith, who can run it up the field 10, 15, 20 yards maybe. But Am I afraid of their playmakers on offense? No, I think that's the key weakness to this team, especially with our defense, that is going to be a big difference in this game.
Well, now I got a question though about because one thing that stood out to me more so before the last matchup with the Patriots, because I think it's dropped off a little bit here over the last month of football for them. But they have a surprising amount of explosive pass plays. And it's not because Mac Jones puts the ball deep down the field. We know that. He's not a big air yards guy. But what he is a guy that passes with pinpoint precision, gets guys in good position to get yards after catch. And their receivers have done a nice job. They're not the most elite athletes of them, but they've done a nice job taking those catches and making the most out of it. Historically, this Buffalo Bills defense is not a great tackling defense. That was one of the things when Trey went out. I was like, well, we might even be getting a little bit better in tackling. We might lose in coverage, but are getting a little better in tackling. Does that aspect of it, we know it's going to be cold. And I think that's probably the impact on the game that is most significant in such a freezing cold game, is that physicality for 60 minutes in a game like this. I'll start with you here, Sturls. Are either you guys concerned with over a 60-minute game that they're going to eventually spring some of these explosive type plays? It's not going to be air yards, but that the Bills have to tackle for 60 minutes and that some of these guys are going to be able to get loose for explosive plays throughout this game.
Yeah, and I think that was one of the things that kept the Patriots in the game the last time they played. That's why they got it so close toward the end, because of missed tackles and so forth. But I will say this, though. I do like what Tremaine Edmonds and Matt Milano bring to the table in this regard. And you might as well throw in Jordan Poyer and Micah Hyde, is where, they kind of make up for a lot of the blunders, if you will, or missed gaps assignments and missed tackles, because they're so honed in on their assignment. So I really do think you're right. I think, us being a bad tackling team, and they're going to try to, get the ball out quick and let those guys make plays after the catch. That's their only hope. Yeah. And they're not going to overthink that. So, that's something that we're definitely going to see.
Anthony?
Yeah, has anybody mentioned that it's going to be cold tomorrow? I don't know if anybody's
heard
that
will
yet.
be cold.
That I've heard.
Supposed to be cold.
That's the only thing we do know.
Just
the only dead certainty is it's going to be freaking cold.
Yeah, so I mean, certainly that is a concern. Anytime you're talking this Bills defense under Sean McDermott, which is weird to say, tackling is an issue. And even this team this year and probably years past as well, I'd say that once a game, the Bills are prone to giving up one of those big time plays that can lead to a touchdown or some 50-yard gash, either a run or a pass.
Field switching.
Exactly, right? And it's usually when the game is still within reach. Maybe we're ahead by 10 points and you're like, oh, great, you give up a touchdown here. We really get uncomfortable. So don't do that. So I'm not too concerned that the Patriots aren't. That I think they're capable of doing that. And I'll give them one in this game, right? So maybe in the third quarter, we're up already by big and they start to mount a comeback a little bit. And it makes us nervous because we miss some tackles as it gets colder and harder in the game. But the same is going to reflect on their defense when our offense is out there as well. And I think when we have control, giving it to a guy like Devin Singletary or running the ball more, even if it's with Josh Allen, when you have a big lead, when you build that lead, which I think we will by that point, it's going to be out of reach for them. And with Mac Jones back there making the decisions, one of the things that I think has gone that I haven't heard much this week in the coverage is I really think that the Bills defense is smart enough to bait Mac Jones into making some of these decisions, right?
I like that.
Want you to think that guy's open and throw it deep because you're throwing it right to Jordan Poyer and he's going to catch it and intercept it, right? I want you to think, oh, it's man coverage. I'm going to throw it to Hunter Henry and Matt Milano's there to, tip it to the next guy or whatever. I think they're going to bait him into turnovers in this game. And that's going to be, help the Bills defense as well. I trust our defense a heck of a lot more than I do Mac Jones to make those plays. Yes, they're capable of making those plays. Yes, I think they could have one big run and one big pass play in this game, and it might make us nervous or angry or cursing during the game. But, it's not ultimately going to help them overcome the Bills.
Quick side rant here, bringing up a clarification. I hear constantly the reminder, did you know that JC Jackson dropped an interception from Josh Allen? Did you know that he dropped? And I hear it, and it's true. It's factual. Josh Allen played maybe his best game of his career and had a terrible pass right into JC Jackson's chest that he dropped. Well, the Bills also had a dropped interception and Zach Moss trip over, Ryan Bates or Baker's ankle, and a drop touchdown by Emmanuel Sanders, and a drop touchdown by Stephon Diggs, I believe. Multiple potential additional scores, all on drives where we got 2 field goals. That, if we're playing the what if game, that's not the only what if in this game. It makes me crazy. It's true. It was a bad pass. They could have done that. It was 7 minutes left. They weren't going to end the game on a 7-minute scoring drive, and we were up 5. It wasn't like, if
we can go through that, a list of 12 what ifs in the first game too. Like
everyone brings that up in every single show I've listened to all week. Like, we get it. It's not the only what if from that game. The other what ifs would have been a blowout.
We should have scored 50 points, right? If you're talking that 50 plus points.
Yeah.
But I think the what if goes to show I've brought it up too, and the only point that I brought up to make is how slim those margins can be in the NFL, where even when you're blowing a team out by every stage, even that Jets game, we were blowing the Jets out and dominating the Jets, and it was still a game that was within reach for them if they made one play, if they got one of those one plays. And that's the NFL, right? Like, that's what's terrifying me about this game is I hate the Patriots with a passion. Everyone I know is Patriots fans, so if they lose this game, it's going to be terrible for me. This is going to be horrible, and it could be one of these games where the Bills could be playing nearly flawless football, but 1 to 2 plays bounce the wrong way and you're out of the playoffs. Your season's done. And so that's why I might not sleep tonight. That's why we set up this show, to help me calm some of my anxieties.
Lauren, with just straight science here, if we pipe into their helmet speakers the Beach Boys song Kokomo, it will warm the players up by at least 10 degrees. That's just scientific fact. If you listen to tropical music, you have to feel warmer.
I like the Beach Boys.
That's genius.
I'm a fan.
Love it.
You would.
Yeah.
So sticking along those lines, now one of the other differences we had, obviously we know the Isaiah McKenzie breakout game and what he did to Miles Bryant in front of all those people. Well, now we have the full squadron of wide receivers available.
Pick your poison.
Sean McDermott said that Emmanuel Sanders could have played against the Jets if it was a impactful game. He's now fully ready. What do you guys expect? We'll start with you, Anthony. What do you guys expect in the mix of the 5 receivers? We now know we have 5 guys who can contribute. We know that Diggs is a lock for the number of snaps, the number of targets. Where do you see the other 4 going in the mix between how much Sanders, how much Davis, how much McKenzie, how much Beasley?
Yeah, that's a great question, and one that I think is going to go drive by drive, play by play kind of thing. The Bills for a long time were doing that at the running back position. Okay, who's the hot hand? We're playing the hot hand kind of thing. In this case, I don't know if it's so much the hot hand as it is the scenario, right? If it's
what schemes are you getting?
What defense are the Pats playing?
Exactly, right. And I think Gabriel Davis will get a few more snaps than Emmanuel Sanders in this one, because he's built that chemistry over the last few games with Josh Allen, and it's looked electric on the field. And again, that's hard to deny with your own eyes if you're the coach on the sideline saying, okay, Sanders is more reliable. Maybe he's a veteran. We know if we need 5 yards, I'm putting Sanders out there all day. But if we need 10 to 12 to 15 yards, Gabe Davis is your guy,
running
obviously.
snaps,
and that's it.
Exactly.
Red zone.
Yes. Anything that's going to be in the mix. Cole Beasley is Mr. Reliable, or has been through his time with Josh Allen, and that has somewhat faded this season a little bit. And Isaiah McKenzie, obviously, in his last game against the Patriots, had the game of his life. I still would expect Beasley in there more than McKenzie. You're going to see McKenzie in for those exactly trick plays. Which one are we doing? Are we tossing it to the jet sweep, or are we really throwing it deep to somebody? I love that. That is what Isaiah McKenzie does for our offense, and that is what he should continue to do. But I definitely don't see him lining up, as the 3rd wide receiver if Beasley's out there and healthy. And we can't underestimate Dawson Knox in this game, who I think could have a big game as well. He's going to be a target, that Josh Allen is looking for in the red zone, in big play situations. And just looking at the Patriots defense and the guys we have on the field, I think that matches up well for Knox to get a lot of action in this game as well.
Love it. Real quick before we go to stars, we just want to read John, always supporting us here and stuck behind enemy lines there, just thanking us for the coverage and everything tonight. It's been an awesome lineup, and I really appreciate your support, John.
Sturls, my man. So we know Jalen Mills didn't travel with the team. He's not coming. He's not coming to play. Bills have this full lineup of wide receivers at their disposal. How big of an advantage is this? Because we were talking to Joe Marino a little earlier. I don't know if you caught it about, Belichick's not going to come out and run the same defense that we saw in that last matchup. He's going to want to do some different things. I think there might be some handcuffing here, not having a Jalen Mills and knowing that you could run out Emmanuel Sanders, you can run out Gabe Davis, you can have Isaiah McKenzie, Beasley. There's so many options for how they can use the skill players on this Bills side of the ball, and you're going up against a cornerback that doesn't have reps. How big of an advantage of that? Is this one of those scenarios where you pick on that and you go after that and attack it?
So I had some time to really think about that, and I don't want them to get too cute. Let's be real here. They got Jawan Williams and Miles Bryant are the next guys up, right?
Yeah.
So I don't think you have to necessarily come out full-fledged 5 wide receivers. I think that's something that we're going to have to save, later in this playoff run. I do think though that we're going to see. I think Bill's going to try to do some man coverage. I think we're going to see more man coverage than we are zone. And if that's the case, it's Diggs all day early. And if they can get more advantageous on first down, get 5-6 yards, just like they were doing in the last game, that's the ticket. That is the ticket to beat Bill Belichick and his team, because you're right. He's gonna mix up some stuff, and he's gonna be throwing stuff at Josh, and probably Josh he hasn't seen, or he hasn't seen in a while. But here's a silver lining thing that I'll bring up. The thing with Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes, especially early in the season, was how were they going to beat cover 2? Typically, we see those kind of formations and those things, they kind of manifest themselves in towards the middle of the end of the season. But luckily this year, it happened early. So Josh was able to find solutions, to find remedies to beat that style of defense. So I don't think we're going to see a lot of that, which is great. And when he did try to do that, Josh tore him up a few weeks ago. So that's one of the things that I'm excited about. But I agree, Josh got to get the ball out early. I think you don't have to get too cute with 5 wide receivers. I think Gabriel Davis as a number 2 wide receiver is going to be able to handle his own, right? Jawan Williams, Miles Bryant, I'll take that matchup any day, all day. And then we've been sleeping on Cole Beasley. I feel like
I did, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I really do think Cole can come in here and have a pretty solid day. So.
Yeah. So going through, we've talked about the matchups. We've talked about what to expect. Let's start with you, Anthony. What do you expect from a game overall? You know, how quickly it jumps out, and what's your score prediction?
Well, hopefully some of the people watching here have already seen what I had to say on the hoof. But here is the end all be all. The Patriots are no longer the bully, right? Stop it. This is it. Right? This is put up or shut up time, and I don't want to hear a word of it again after this. The Patriots are the inferior team. Look at everything we've looked at, everything we've talked about tonight. The 2 points you just made that I've been thinking about as well this week. Bill Belichick, what's he going to do? Have you seen the commercial where they bring the baby cart on the field and they're like, oh, this is something new? Is Bill Belichick going to do that? Because at this point, he has tried everything against Josh Allen, and it has not worked. And if he plays man coverage, then we're all clapping. We want man coverage with Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs and the guys we got. Please give us man coverage, and you're going to get whooped, right? So I don't care what Bill Belichick cannot invent ways to play defense at this point against Josh Allen. I don't think he can scheme something up that's going to work well with the personnel he has versus the personnel that Josh Allen has. And when the Bills win this game handedly, because if you go through position by position, there is nothing the Patriots do better than this Buffalo Bills team. The fluke win they had in the bad weather game that we mismanaged. The second game was definitely more reflective of this matchup and what I expect from it. So my final score is 38-10. And that is it. So next year, I don't want to hear from ESPN that the Patriots are going to win the division. I don't want to hear from CBS that unanimously the Patriots are going to be the AFC Championship team with a rookie quarterback who hasn't shown crap. Like, I mean, everybody praises him, but 38-10, and that's an underestimate of what the Bills could do. I think they could score more, but they're going to run more in the second half because this is it. The Patriots are done. They are not the team that we should be afraid of anymore. We are better than them, and we're going to prove it in this game and move on. So everybody's anxiety over this game is going to no longer exist come next year. It's over after this.
I don't believe you at all.
I want so bad for that to be the truth.
You at all.
It's going to be fantastic. The chat's loving it. Yeah. We appreciate it. If you guys want to hear more absolute fire like that, make sure you're logging in to the Hoof every Tuesday night, 9 o'clock Eastern time. They're going to be.
What I will say, the bets have been good. If you want some betting advice, get over to my man.
61% on the.
That's it.
So let them know where they can find you.
Yeah, and we want your game prediction here before we get you guys out of here.
Oh, it's going to be 27-13. And I think they're going to pull away late. I think it's going to be a dogfight in the first half, and then it's going to start to get, favorable.
Cream rises to the top.
Yeah, in honor of your birthday, bro. Like, my son's birthday is this weekend. Your birthday.
Happy birthday to your son,
birthday's tomorrow as well.
Man.
So.
Oh,
yeah, his
I didn't
birthday.
know that.
3 number 1 birthdays.
You share a birthday, but you hate Christmas. That's
the 16th.
So weird.
16th is my birthday, Sunday.
Okay.
There we go.
All right.
Hey, man, we out of here. I love you guys. It's been great. Thanks for
coming out, guys. Man. We appreciate
it.
Bills.
So
Bills.
excited.
Enjoy the game, guys.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks for having us.
So much. Yeah. So switching over now.
Last but not least, real excited about this one because in all the content that I've done, I'm a big fan of this show and have never gotten to actually have chatted with these guys in DMs, chatted on the Twitter. Never had a chance to actually sit and talk with them. So, guys, what's going on? We got Clay and Kendall from the Buffalo Fanatics film room. These guys are super smart guys. If you're not following them on Twitter, get on it. They're sort of in the same cuff of what we do at Cover One and breaking down film in a nice objective way. So guys, what's going on? Welcome to the show.
So not much, man. It's going to be tough to match that energy though from Anthony. That was a lot.
Nobody's coming.
I mean, I have tons of anxiety, like every reason. I went to school at UMass.
He does too.
I'm very similar. I'm very similar to you, Aaron, where I have tons of Pat's friends. I just, it's tough. It's tough to be around with these games.
I'll tell you, Anthony's that excitement and energy is projection of his actual anxieties. He's just trying to tell you that he's not.
Clay, how you feeling?
I'm feeling great. I'm a little anxious, and I think it's probably for me. It's just because it's the Pats, and every loss is amplified so much with the Pats that it scares me a little bit more. Because like if we do lose, it's gonna suck for an entire offseason. I don't think we're going to, but just like that kind of lingering feeling in the back of my mind is just kind of eating away at me. Yeah.
We talked about that earlier. That it's the
20 years will do that to you.
It's sports PTSD. I don't want to. I'm not making light of real PTSD, but like
it's the only thing you can compare it to.
Yeah, it really is. It's sports PTSD. It just takes you back to a mental headspace that you can't get out of, and the anxiety of, oh my gosh, what if we just put this season together and we're the better team and we're back-to-back division champs and we're the favorite. Yeah. And lots of people are saying how we make the most sense to go to the Super Bowl, and we let them, as far as I've been told by the interwebs, this bag of milk quarterback beat us in the playoffs. Like, I can't deal with it.
Anyone but them. I'd lose to Cincy in the first round and be okay.
I mean, everyone was ready to crown Cincy as the Super Bowl winners after they were, or as they were heading into Kansas City. So, I mean, losing to them would be a much different narrative nationally. Yeah. This one is obviously different.
So taking off our fan anxieties and stuff like that, I know you guys have jumped into the film on this one. And so I want to kind of get your sort of general takes on this. We've talked a lot about the trenches. We've talked a lot about the skill positions, all that stuff. Let's talk about a big picture here in this game. We'll start with you, Clay. What are you seeing? What stands out to you in watching this Patriots team and how they match up with Buffalo now that we've got all this tape on them playing Buffalo and what they've done over the last month?
Yeah, I mean, I genuinely, I think the Patriots, when they're in the kind of heavy sets and a lot of things that they were running in that first game against the Bills, honestly, I think if the Patriots going up against the Bills, if you want to throw it 5 times a game, that's probably still your best strategy, in my opinion, just because the Bills' pass defense is so effective against rookie quarterbacks. And Mac Jones, he's a good quarterback, and I think he's a great game manager right now. He could grow into something better. I don't have complete loss of hope for what Mac Jones could be, I guess. But really, the best matchup for the Patriots is using your big guys up front and getting to the second level so well that they do. Their linemen and their fullback and their tight ends, they can get up and block those linebackers and take those guys away. And to me, that's kind of my biggest concern, especially with it being cold and Mac Jones is going to be in his scuba suit again, probably not wanting to throw the ball. So, it worries me a little bit that he might just say, we're just going to run the ball. And if the Bills don't get an early lead, then that's going to be really, really scary, because then the Patriots kind of control the game from that point.
Yeah, and Kendall, same kind of question. Flip it over to you. What are you seeing on film, and what does this matchup present to you?
I mean, broadly, it's the same kind of stuff that we've been talking about, and a lot of people that have come on have talked about, where it's this Patriots team presents a bunch of different challenges to the Bills team because of their strengths relative to our strengths, and our strengths are defending the pass, passing the football. Their strengths are conversely the opposite, and it just presents a bunch of different challenges. Like Clay said, those heavy sets, it's just tough for us. It's tough for the Bills defense when we're just naturally that base nickel defense. Tehran does what Tehran does in the run game and in the pass game in the slot, but when you have Michael Onwenu coming in the game as the 6th offensive lineman, and they got 2 tight ends on top of that, you got to match that personnel, and you have to put a 3rd linebacker in. And of course, the last time we played, AJ Klein wasn't playing; it was Tyrell Dodson. So it'll be interesting to see how much of an impact Klein can make on this game, and how much we'll even see him get used. But I mean, similar to what everyone has said broadly about this game, it is so important that we win early and also win on early downs. Because if we win on early downs, it puts Mac Jones into those situations where we know he's passing, and the Bills defense can do what the Bills defense wants to do and defend the sticks. And I mean, nitty gritty wise, I want to see a lot of cover 2. I want to see a ton of cover 2. I think he's so comfortable throwing short, intermediate, and specifically the middle of the field. I think cover 2 is going to take that away, and also take away the flats on the boundaries as well. And I imagine that's going to be part of his reads, how he's going to look at the field. He's going to want to see that middle of the field. And, if his guy Hunter Henry isn't open in the middle, maybe someone's hitting a corner in the hole shot for cover 2. And then it's very dependent on Dane and Levi rerouting at the beginning of those routes. So there's a lot to break down with this game. There's a lot that's going to be going on, but it starts and ends at the beginning of the game and beginning of drives.
Well, let's talk about this. We saw the adjustment in the second game when the Patriots went heavy. They went 6-0 line. We know we adjusted. We pivoted to a group that brought in Siran Neal at outside corner. You give yourself an extra inch or two, an extra 20 pounds. We saw A.J. Klein come in as a third linebacker to be able to be there, having him instead of Terrell Dodson from the first matchup. Right. You know, do you think we're going to see – obviously, there's another variable with losing Isaiah Wynn that now – Michael Onwenu is going to play in this game, whether it's a starting tackle or whether it's as the 6-0 line, they're going to have him in the game. But Justin Herron's not the same as Isaiah Wynn. Do you think that we stick with that match unit where we bring in if they bring a 6 guy on the field, we bring in Neal and Klein, or do you think that we're going to have a new variable or wrinkle on top of that?
I think they're probably gonna run it kind of similarly to how they did it last game. I think we're going to see AJ Klein on the field a decent amount, especially because they were even in that first matchup comfortable with putting Tyrell Dodson in and taking a corner off the field. And really, it's kind of it hurts a little bit because Taron Johnson plays almost like a linebacker himself at times. So it's, sometimes it's, I don't know, maybe he would still be okay if we kept him in, or, maybe keep him in as the corner instead of Siran Neal. But yeah, I definitely think that both of those guys are going to be on the field and probably on the field at the same time if they really want to go into those heavy sets. Because, as far as pound for pound matchups, a guy like Dane Jackson is, he's not a very big dude. He hits well, he tackles well for his size, but when you have that extra weight behind you, and it's kind of the same with Taron Johnson, where he's a big hitter and he can play like a linebacker and get up into the box and fill the gap and everything like that. But AJ Klein is just a different beast when it comes to defending the run and being able to play downhill the way that he does.
50 pounds between those two guys.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So it's definitely something I think you got to do just from like a logistical standpoint.
From physics standpoint.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, even just to give, even if it's not every single snap, if you can give AJ Klein 20 of those snaps, and now Taron Johnson only has to tackle for 40 snaps instead of 60 snaps, that could matter and add up by the end of the game. How about you, Kendall? Do you expect, or if not that, if you do expect that to be the same, do you expect any other wrinkles that we may see? We saw Eli Ankau being promoted from the practice squad. There's some questions on, okay, who's going to be the piece here? Is it, I pray that it's Vernon Butler that sits again. But who else we see in the moving pieces here when we know run defense is going to be the key? So either on that, match unit with the 6-0 line or some of the other players on the defensive line, what are you expecting?
I'm definitely going to echo a lot of the same sentiments. I think it's going to be similar. We're going to match a lot, but I think the wrinkle that we'll see is going to be from the Pats and how they counter that. And I think something that's not being talked about a ton is Nelson Aguilar playing in this game. And obviously it didn't really matter in the first game because of the weather. But in this one, in this game specifically, it does matter because obviously the weather's a whole thing. But it's not going to be windy. So passing is still going to happen in this game. It might be a little bit more difficult, but it's still going to happen. And Aguilar presents the threat of really getting beyond our safeties, getting a deep threat for this Pats offense, and they did not have that in game 2. So it'll be interesting to see if they do some play action shot plays using Aguilar or maybe Hunter Henry in the intermediate part of the field, specifically when the Bills match the jumbo sets, because obviously you see a jumbo set and it's like,
you get Neal and Klein in coverage. Now all of a sudden you're talking.
Exactly. You sell out for the run. Like that's what the Bills need to do early. They need to try and take away the run. And will Bill present a counterpunch to the Bills defense taking away the counterpunch of the run? So it'll be very interesting to see how, obviously this is the third matchup, how everyone's reacting to everyone's counterpunches, because I mean, we talked about it on our film session. We want the Bills to hit those deep crossers early and often until the Patriots show that they can stop it.
Right. So I was actually going to lead into it. My next question was going to sort of be about Nelson Aguilar, because we talked a lot with some of our guests here about how does Jalen Mills being out impact. But what we haven't talked about enough tonight, in my opinion, is Ramondre Stevenson being in this game. He wasn't in the last game, and that type of running back, spelling Harris. What Harris was able to do without him in that last game was huge. And now you get a guy that comes in and gives you fresh legs. That's an issue. But Aguilar, we talked about it with Evan Lazar in our preview show here this week. I'll hit you with this a little bit, Clay. In that last game, New England really bunched things up. That spacing didn't exist because N'Keal Harry is not Nelson Aguilar, right? He can't stretch the field. He can't be that outside vertical threat, even if you're not throwing the ball. The Bills had it for years with Marquise Goodwin. Even when they couldn't put the deep ball out there, teams had to respect the speed because at any moment you could put the ball out there. And we've been dunking a lot on Mac Jones on this episode. And my thing has been all year is he's not as bad as Bills fans want to say he is. There's some good film out there on this guy. This guy can do some things with his arm. He's not going to beat Josh Allen. He's not going to put the team on his back and win with his arm. But he can put the ball downfield. He can make some plays. What type of difference does having a Nelson Aguilar and creating that spacing present to what the Bills want to do? Because they are a pass first or a pass stopping defense, and they are a smaller defense. Does creating some of that space with Aguilar and getting a little more spacing, is that a big advantage to New England, and having both healthy running backs and knowing that they can maybe create some holes and not allow the Bills to bunch things up and totally sell out on the run?
I think it matters a little bit. Maybe not. It's not like going to be like an astronomical change from last game to this game, I don't think. But having that deep threat guy is, it kind of puts you in a bind sometimes because, are you going to take a safety out of the play out of this, who could be a little bit closer and, kind of cover those underneath middle routes that they like to throw a little more often, in that 7 to 10 yard range. They like to hit those. So it matters a little bit because you're stretching the defense vertically, and it does create more open spaces where Mac Jones can put the ball. He has a pretty decent arm and is able to hit those intermediate routes. So it definitely is going to matter. As far as both of the running backs, it's going to be fresh legs, so those guys are going to be running heavy. But even still, I think the first matchup when Damian Harris was pretty much doing it all himself, it didn't really seem like they were having much of an issue. And so just having that other guy to create a little bit of a change of pace is definitely going to hurt a little bit. But I think a lot of the success that they had, especially in that first game, came from blocking schemes and executing the blocking schemes really well. Now, there were a decent amount of missed tackles in that game as well, which is an issue that I think they cleaned up a lot for the second game. So, it is going to make a difference. But to me, I don't think it's going to be something that's going to completely, throw a wrench in the defense's game plan.
So, ultimately, let's talk through what you guys are going to expect tomorrow night. What do you think we're going to see, and what's your score prediction? We'll start with you, Kendall.
Well, I should have told you before that my internet was going to be annoying. I just cut out a little bit there.
We've been dealing with my internet.
I know,
for
right?
3 years. Bad 3 years of my internet.
You're good.
So, it's really tough to predict this game mostly because of, like I said, it's Bill Belichick for the third time. There's going to be a lot of counters being thrown at each other. So it's really tough to predict. But what I do want to predict first and foremost is a pretty slow game to start. As much as I think the Bills' path to victory is starting fast and getting to the lead early, controlling game script, forcing Mac Jones to throw, all that stuff, it's really, I'm expecting a lot of both teams learning a lot about each other in the first half, and then a lot of second half adjustments winning the game. And I think throughout the years, we've seen that McDermott has made adjustments specifically at halftime. I don't think this group is necessarily the greatest at, mid-quarter, mid-game adjustments, but they know how to adjust when they regroup and they get into that locker room. So I'm really expecting a slow burn in that first half, kind of like Sterling said, and then the second half just running away with it.
I like it. What's the score?
I've been bouncing around with this. I think I'm going to go with 30-23. I think there's going to be some field goals in this game. There's going to be a little bit less aggression and analytical thinking.
I dabbled with 26-19 for a minute. I didn't want people to yell at me.
19 in our last episode because my writing's terrible, but I actually had it written as 17. But I can go with 19. I can see
four field goals is possible.
Yeah.
All right, Clay, how about you?
For me, I don't know if it's going to start out slow. That's the thing is, kind of my wish is that if the Bills win the toss, I want them to take the football and go score right away. Get the lead as fast as you can, because against a running team, if they get any kind of lead on you, you're already at a disadvantage for the rest of the game.
And we like boat racing on this episode.
Big fan of it.
But to me, I think what we're going to see is someone is going to be the guy for this game. And I don't think anyone knows who it is. Maybe the Bills don't even know who it is yet because they're going to wait till the game starts to see what happens. But last time
Matt Breida game? No.
Yeah, maybe. Who knows? But, last time it was Isaiah McKenzie, and he was a guy that they found a way that they could use him, specifically against man coverage. If he's in the slot, if we motion him in, we can run the deep crossers, and they just killed him with it all game. So, I don't think those are going to be as available. I think they're going to try to find ways to stop that because of how effective it was last time. So, but I definitely think there's going to be someone that's going to step up, and whether it's one of the wide receivers that just he and Josh get on the same page with each other. It could even be Devin Singletary, who's been playing really, really good football. But
how about the poetry of a Emmanuel Sanders return game after the start of the year and then fading away completely, and then all of a sudden, boom, back on the scene.
Yeah, and I feel like that's the way the Bills offense has operated, for a while now, where it's just, sometimes a guy has a good game, and that's just the way that it is because they have so much talent across that entire offensive roster. But to me, the marquee matchup is the Bills offense versus the Patriots defense. I'm not so much worried about the other side because I have a lot of confidence in the Bills defense. So it's really about what offense is going to show up and how well can they execute against the Bill Belichick defense, which is never an easy thing to do, regardless of the personnel that they've got there. It's Bill Belichick, and it's always Bill Belichick, and he's going to be hard to beat. So I think the Bills come away with it, though. It's funny, I was actually thinking about doing a 19 for the Patriots because I thought they were going to get stopped in the red zone a lot. So
they have this year a lot.
And
that's why Nick Folk had an amazing fantasy season.
Right. Yeah. So, but yeah, for me, I'll probably say 27-17, just because I think the Bills are going to be able to put it in the end zone, and it's going to be fairly simple for them. It's just how well they're going to be able to execute. And I think that's what scares me because you don't really know who's going to show up, and hopefully it's these guys that are ready for the playoffs and that want to win it.
Awesome. So let the folks know where they can find you. Kendall, where can the good folks find you online, and where's your show?
Well, you can find me on the wonderful Bird app down there at Mirsky. Oh my God, I actually got it. Mirsky Kendall. And of course, we're on Buffalo Fanatics YouTube channel every Wednesday doing our film session. We're kind of dabbling with the idea of continuing our preview shows, also with a recap show, kind of splitting it up. But yeah, that's up to the people. The people decide.
And you can find me on Twitter as well. I'm over here at Clay Troia. I'm on the show with Kendall. We co-host the Buffalo Film Session Live, Buffalo Fanatics Film Session Live. Join us there and put Anthony up on the split screen and get us both going. So you just get one in each ear, just a ton of football information at once, so you can absorb everything.
It's efficiency.
Yeah.
Absolutely. No, we appreciate you guys so much. Great job tonight. Looking forward to it, and hopefully a great game tomorrow.
Thanks,
Bills. Thanks for coming out tonight, guys.
Thank you, guys. Go Bills.
Thanks, guys. Go Bills.
Oh, do you feel any better now, Greg? Because I don't.
A little.
And none of this worked for me.
I don't know. Yeah, I was kind of hoping this would be this awesome salve to just make everything feel okay. Anthony tried. Anthony did his darndest to get us pumped up and excited for a blowout, but
I don't know if you can pull up a tweet. I think you retweeted it and I retweeted it. It's from somebody at CBS.
Jeff Kerr
at CBS. If you can pull that up for the people, this is probably the thing that made me feel the best tonight so far of anything that I've seen. Let me see if I can find it here.
I got it. You got it here. So it is fantastic, and it goes to show we spent a lot of time when I was talking about everything's on the table, all the things that are there. We see the ones that go around about what if every single one-score game was flipped the opposite? Well, if every one-score game was flipped the opposite, the Bills go 16-1. And the reason that people bring that up and the score differential and why they're number one in so many other elements is this right here. The most wins by 12 points in a season since the AFL-NFL merger. The greatest show on turf Rams, the record-shattering 16-0 2007 Patriots, and the Bills this season. The Bills had 11 wins by 12 or more points this season. Every single other one on there, you're talking the crazy Warren Sapp, Derek Brooks Bucks, the 85
Bears, the greatest team arguably to ever play football. So on this list,
I would say I think the greatest team in NFL history is on this list. You can argue which of the three
one it is. Yeah.
But like the teams that everybody brings up are on this list of the greatest teams in NFL history and the 2021 Bills.
Yeah, and we're talking about such a weird season and how no team has really stood out as the best team. And then you see a list like this and that the Bills are on this list. And if you can't see, there's asterisks next to the names because Rams won the Super Bowl. Patriots went to the Super Bowl, obviously a huge letdown on the Super Bowl.
Yeah,
I would love...
Strahan.
Yeah, I'm just happy to get there. So get me to a Super Bowl. Buccaneers won the Super Bowl, and obviously the Bears won the Super Bowl. So this list is
every other
the
team
most elite company you can be in. And I'm not saying that this is there's a correlation that now the Bills are guaranteed, although I did retweet that it is confirmed that now the Bills are going to the Super Bowl.
Rock solid,
obviously. But this is probably the thing that has made me actually feel the best tonight, that I might be able to sleep easy knowing that in such a wacky, crazy NFL season that the Bills still are a historically dominant team in all of that.
Yeah, it is crazy to see it in that context, but realistically, and I know I want to give credit to who said it, but I think maybe Jeff Hazley or one of the guys over at Football Guys, they're the one that put out that stat about there's an alternate universe here where very realistically this season the Buffalo Bills are 15-2 and being talked about as the runaway dominant number one seed and the far and away favorite for the Super Bowl because they've played that good. I know every time I bring it up, people are like, oh, well, that's coaching that they went 0-5. No, it's not.
Or that it's the
last year Sean
who
McDermott
they played. Well, they didn't play any well. They played the Texans and stuff, but DVOA counts for that. Like those some of the stats that we see that count for that.
Our schedule was real similar last year too, and we had the exact same coaching staff, and we went 5-1 in one-score games last year. They didn't all of a sudden get worse. It's the same thing. It's not pure luck, but there's a lot of randomness in football, and those one-score games go both directions. If you look at if the one-score games flip the other way, the Pittsburgh Steelers are 3-14. It shows you, and I think if you watch them play, that's not shocking that maybe it would go that way. So I think that was a great tweet to end the show on tonight, to show the kind of team that this is, the capabilities and the potential that this could be a historic, magical run that only happens if they can take care of business tomorrow night against the New England Patriots, win this home game, and get a run started. Aaron, what do you have for the people to close it out?
Well, if they do that, if they do all the things you just said, it starts tomorrow night. We will be here live after the game, as always. Whether we win or lose, we'll be here to either celebrate with you with some delicious Uncle Jumbos or to deal with that with some delicious Uncle Jumbos and get through that early morning loss. Hopefully it's the first and we are celebrating a fantastic win moving on to the next round of the playoffs, but enjoy this whole day tomorrow. There's going to be a lot of ramp up to this game. I'm excited. I'm still, having been an adult throughout this drought era Bills team. Like somebody asked me the other day, because again, it's my birthday tomorrow, and they're like, have the Bills ever played on your birthday? And I was like, oh, geez, maybe when I was a kid during those runs, but definitely not as an adult because they haven't played in January until recently.
Yeah, I'm real confident there were 17 years there where they didn't.
They did not. And so I hate to be that guy. I'm just happy to be here. I'm happy that the Bills are playing in a playoff game. This is still cool for me that we are a playoff team and that we're a favorite in a playoff game. We're not just happy to be just lucked into the playoffs and just gonna be here. People are picking the Bills to go far in those playoffs, and that's super exciting. So I'm ramped up. I live here, man. I dropped my kid off at school today. Everyone was wearing Bills gear. Every single parent that was dropping off was wearing Bills gear. My wife came in. She said everybody at the office was draped in Bills gear. There's flags everywhere. People are at an all-time high. It's a great time to be a Bills fan, folks. I don't know if it's going to last beyond tomorrow, but if it doesn't, live it up the next 24 hours because this is awesome.
Yeah, and soak up every minute of it. Enjoy this. I think it lasts beyond tomorrow. I think the Bills are going to win. I feel good about this game. You should feel confident too. This is what it's going to be like the rest of the way. There's no easy games in the playoffs. I lied. The Chiefs are playing the Steelers. Beyond that, there's no other easy games in the playoffs here. Do not miss this. Do not overlook this. This is what it's going to be like for 15 years. We're going to have anxiety like this every season because we have Josh Allen and we have Sean McDermott and we have Brandon Beane and we have the leadership in place that we are going to have a good, competitive, championship caliber team every year that we have our key people healthy, this is one of those years. This is a special year. They have the capability. Be excited about it. Enjoy every second of it and be able to roll through there. And hey, maybe crazy stuff happens and the Steelers beat the Chiefs and maybe we get back-to-back home games. We'll see where that goes. But it all starts tomorrow night. We're going to be there for you no matter what. Make sure you're checking out the pregame show with the Air Raid Hour. Dave and Steve do an awesome job. They're going to be ready for you. Me, Aaron, Anthony are going to be there for you after the game, celebrating a victory, opening up the Uncle Jumbos, ready to roll. On behalf of Aaron Quinn, I am Greg Tompsett. You've been listening to Cover One Buffalo, and we are out.